Chapter 134. When she mentioned what happened that day, Jika's emotions became somewhat agitated. Her eyes were filled with anger, and she immediately recounted the events from beginning to end. At noon that day, I was cultivating in my residence in the White Dew courtyard when a female disciple suddenly delivered a letter to me. The spirit medicine hall elder and Chu Tianxing calmly looked at her and listened attentively. Time slowly passed, and the more Jika spoke, the more agitated she became. When she spoke of how she was stabbed by Ji Ling and pushed off the cliff, her emotions were both sorrowful and angry, and tears welled up in her eyes. I really didn't expect this. Ji Ling is actually cruel and vicious to this extent. He is my imperial uncle, my imperial father's younger brother. He didn't even let off a niece like me. He's simply a beast that's worse than a pig or a dog. When he heard this, the truth was already revealed. Chu Tianxing's expression was somewhat gloomy, and his brows were tightly knitted. He recalled that Xiang Wuji had said last night that Ji Ling appeared to be loyal and honest on the surface, but was actually secretly observing the situation in the underground demon's cave. Now, Jika's words proved that Ji Ling was a cold-blooded, ruthless, and despicable villain. Chu Tianxing had to admit that his martial uncle Xiang Wuji was indeed good at discerning people. He was able to see through a person's nature in an instant. He also had to consider how to deal with the situation now that Ji Ling knew about the underground demon's cave. At this moment, the spirit medicine hall elder sighed and comforted Ji Ku with a kind tone. He was a stooped white-bearded old man with a kind face. He had always been gentle and magnanimous, and was the most popular person in the Sky Pillar sect. Ji Ku wiped away the tears in her eyes and sincerely thanked the spirit medicine hall elder. Chu Tianxing frowned and pondered for a moment before coming up with an idea. He solemnly said to Ji Ku, you can focus on recuperating in the spirit medicine hall. I will make a decision on this matter. With that, Chu Tianxing turned to leave. Ji Ku was clearly unwilling and quickly said anxiously, Sect Master, Ji Ling is unforgivable. You can't let him off so easily. And Big Brother Tianxing, I heard that he was wronged and imprisoned in the Dark Wind Cave. Now that more than 10 days have passed, I don't know how he has been tortured. Please let him go. However, Chu Tianxing walked out of the room without looking back. He didn't respond to her words at all. Jika looked disappointed and worried. She couldn't help but start sobbing again. The spiritual medicine hall elder hurriedly comforted her. Jiku, don't worry. Our sect has its own rules. The sect master will definitely follow the sect's rules and will not protect anyone. Although Jiku was worried, there was nothing he could do. He could only nod. At this point, she could only silently pray that Ji Tianxing would be fine. Chu Tianxing returned to the sky-raising palace with a solemn expression and summoned Yun Yao and the discipline hall elders. When Yun Yao and the discipline hall elder entered the main hall, he immediately gave the order. Elder Huang, immediately bring Ji Ling and his 2 accomplices to the main hall. I want to punish them. Yun Yao, quickly go to the Dark Wind Cave and bring Ji Tianxing here. I want to judge this matter in person and clear his name. The discipline hall elder didn't say much. He immediately cupped his fists and walked out of the main hall to carry out the order. Yun Yao stayed behind and asked doubtfully, Master, has Jika woken up and you already know the truth? Chu Tianxing nodded and said, Yes, that female disciple woke up last night. I just came back from the spiritual medicine hall and questioned her face to face. Yun Yao nodded and asked again, Master, did you fail to activate the array when you brought Ji Ling into the underground demon's cave last night? Chu Tianxing nodded expressionlessly and said, That's right. He is not someone who defies fate. The person we are looking for is still in our sect. A strange look flashed through Yun Yao's eyes. She already understood something in her heart. However, her thoughts were meticulous, and she had always done things flawlessly. She was very steady. Although she knew the answer in her heart, she wasn't completely sure, so she wouldn't say it rashly at this moment. Disciple will take her leave. She bowed to Chu Tianxing and left the heaven-raising palace, rushing to the Dark Wind Cave. About a quarter of an hour later, she entered the Dark Wind Cave and came to the stone room door. When she saw that the cold iron door was dented and twisted, and the stone room's walls were full of cracks and big handprints, she immediately frowned. Ji Tianxing was sitting in the corner, cultivating. His face was pale, and his body was stained with blood. It was obvious that he had been injured. She woke Ji Tianxing up and asked with a frown, Junior brother Tianxing, What's going on? Ji Tianqing understood why she was asking, so he answered truthfully. Yesterday, a woman wearing a black robe climbed out of the cliff and wanted to kill me without any explanation. After listening to him, Yunyao understood that it was a demon expert who had secretly invaded. Judging from the damage to the cold iron door and the stone room's walls, the demon woman was very strong. Ji Tianqing was only severely injured. It was already extremely fortunate that he was still alive. She didn't ask much about this matter. Junior brother Tianqing, Ji Ku has woken up. The sect master ordered me to take you to the heaven-raising palace. After saying this, she took out a key and unlocked the cold iron door. Ji Tianqing immediately revealed a look of joy and said excitedly, "That's great. I knew that Ku was lucky and would definitely wake up. Damn Ji Ling, it's time to admit your guilt and be executed." Then, he walked out of the stone room and followed Yunyao out of the dark wind cave, rushing to the heaven-raising palace. When the two of them entered the heaven-raising palace, there were already 4 people standing in the main hall. These 4 people were the discipline hall elders, Ji Ling, Jian Yu, and Lu Mingyang. Chu Tianxing sat in the main seat with a gloomy expression and remained silent. The atmosphere in the main hall was very oppressive. Ji Ling, Jian Yu, and Lu Mingyang all realized that something was wrong. Their expressions were very ugly, and they felt very nervous. When they saw Yun Yao bring Ji Tianqing into the main hall, they were filled with grief and indignation. Their hearts were filled with a strong sense of uneasiness. Ji Tianqing also stared coldly at Ji Ling, his eyes surging with a strong murderous intent. Seeing that everyone was present, Chu Tianqing said in a low voice, "Last night, Ji Ke woke up after being treated by the spiritual medicine hall elders. Just now, I went to the spiritual medicine hall to question Ji Ke face to face and found out everything that happened that day." At this point, he looked at Ji Ling, Jian Yu, and Lu Mingyang with a dignified expression and shouted sternly, "Do the 3 of you know your crimes?" As his voice rang out, his body emitted an invisible pressure that enveloped Ji Ling and the other 2. The 3 of them immediately turned ashen. They knew that the matter had been completely exposed, and the truth would be revealed today. Jian Yu and Lu Mingyang could not bear Chu Tianqing's powerful pressure. They immediately knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. "Sect Master, this disciple knows his crimes." This disciple was confused for a moment. "Sect Master, please show mercy." "Sect Master, this disciple will not dare to do it again in the future. Please forgive me." Chu Tianxing ignored the 2 of them and stared at Ji Ling. He shouted in a deep voice, "Ji Ling, what else do you have to say?" Ji Ling's heart was filled with grief and indignation. He looked like he had lost his soul. A few days ago, he was still in high spirits and was about to become the sect master's favorite person. In the future, he would be a personal disciple and even have the qualifications to compete for the sect master's position. At this moment, he had failed to successfully activate the 9 dragons trapping demon formation and was even exposed. He was about to be punished by the sect's rules. The difference between the 2 situations was huge. It was as if he had fallen from the clouds to hell, making him almost go crazy. At this point, no matter how unwilling he was, he could not use any of his sinister methods in front of Chu Tianxing. He could only kneel on the ground and kowtow to Chu Tianxing, begging for mercy. "This disciple knows his crimes. Please punish me, Sect Master." Chapter 135. Ji Ling, Jian Yu, and Lu Mingyang all knelt down and admitted their guilt. Chu Tianxing was expressionless as he announced the punishment in a stern tone. "Lu Mingyang, you conspired with Ji Ling and Jian Yu to murder your fellow junior sisters and maliciously frame your fellow junior brothers. You have violated the 3rd commandment of the sect. Since you are an accomplice and have a good attitude, I will strip you of your status as an inner disciple and demote you to the outer disciple. I will also deduct your monthly allowance for half a year." Lu Mingyang was only an accomplice and did not attack Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku. His crime was lighter. Therefore, Chu Tianqing's punishment was reasonable. Although it was humiliating to be stripped of his status as an inner disciple, Lu Mingyang had no objections and immediately kowtowed. "Thank you for your forgiveness, sect leader. I am willing to accept the punishment and will sincerely repent in the future." Chu Tianxing nodded and continued to announce, "Jian Yu, you conspired with Ji Ling to murder your fellow junior brothers and junior sisters. You have violated the sects. Since you are an accomplice, I punish you to be confined in the dark wind cave for half a year and deduct 1 year's allowance." When Jianyu heard the words Dark Wind Cave, his body trembled and his heart was filled with grief and indignation. Of course, he knew how bitter and cold it was in the Dark Wind Cave. He was going to be confined in the Dark Wind Cave for half a year. However, he knew very well that Chu Tianqing's punishment was reasonable and he could only kowtow and accept his punishment. Disciple Jianyu is willing to accept the punishment and will definitely reflect on my mistakes. Finally, Chu Tianqing's gaze fell on Jiling. He announced in a low voice, Jiling, you are the mastermind behind this matter. Your vile methods and vicious heart are rare. With your character and the crimes you have committed, you are not worthy to be a disciple of the sect. I have decided to abolish your lifetime's cultivation and expel you from the sect. When he heard the punishment, Jiling trembled and was filled with grief, anger, and despair. He had expected that he would be expelled from the sect after the matter was exposed. However, he did not expect Chu Tianqing to abolish his lifetime's cultivation. This punishment was too heavy. He was once a trash with a damaged dantian. Although the people of Qingyun feared his identity as a prince, they were very disdainful of him. However, he was not willing to be mediocre and had great ambition. That was why he deliberately pretended to be a virtuous gentleman to win the respect of the people of Qingyun. Because he was humiliated by being called a trash. That was why he used Ling Yunfei and schemed to seize Ji Tianqing's bloodline and his cultivation. Now, he had finally realized his long-cherished wish and entered the Sky Pillar sect of his dreams. His future path of martial arts was vast, and he was about to rise in the Sky Pillar sect. In the future, he would also become a martial arts expert. But now, Chu Tian wanted to cripple his life's worth of cultivation. He was beaten back to his original state, once again becoming the trash prince that everyone ridiculed. How could he accept this? He. Unparalleled anger and humiliation caused his entire body to tremble. He actually lost his mind and crawled up like a madman. His eyes were bloodshot as he shouted angrily, "No! The Sky Pillar Hall was the most sacred place in the Sky Pillar sect. Jiling was just an outer disciple, but he dared to roar at the sect master. Chu Tianqing's face turned gloomy. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Not waiting for him to speak, the Discipline Hall elder, who was known as the Black-Face Fiend, scolded in a cold voice, "Evil creature, you have big dog guts. You dare to behave atrociously in the Sky Pillar Hall." His voice fell. His figure flashed and appeared in front of Jiling. Without any explanation, he stretched out his right palm and struck Jiling's dantian with a bang. Majestic golden true essence gushed out of his palm. It instantly destroyed Jiling's dantian and crippled his cultivation. Jiling was sent flying by the palm. He spat out blood and fell 3 meters away. He lay on the ground in a sorry state. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. He roared with grief and indignation. Why? Why is it like this? I don't want to. When Jian Yu and Lu Mingyang saw Jiling's miserable end, they immediately lowered their heads and knelt on the ground, not daring to move. Compared to Jiling's ending, the two of them secretly rejoiced. At the same time, they hated Ji Tianqing even more. Chu Tianqing saw Jiling struggling on the ground with blood all over his face and roaring. He frowned and ordered, "Throw him out and expel him from the sect immediately." The Discipline Hall elder nodded and quickly walked to Jiling's side. He grabbed him by the collar and dragged him out of the Sky Pillar Hall like a dead dog. At this time, Chu Tianqing announced again, "Ji Tianqing, the truth of the matter has come to light. It proves that you are innocent. Go back to the storm courtyard to cultivate." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bowed. He calmly said, "Thank you, sect master." Other than that, he didn't say anything else. This matter was Jiling's conspiracy. He was involved in the conspiracy, so he was suspicious. He was imprisoned in the Dark Wind Cave for 13 days. The Discipline Hall also dealt with him according to the sect rules, so he had no complaints about the sect. Even if he was wronged, the sect didn't deliberately target him. It was enough that he was innocent. He understood that since he had entered a large sect with strict rules, he had to adapt to the sect's rules. Only in this way could he safely survive in the sect. Of course, after this matter, he learned his lesson and raised his vigilance. He would definitely not be easily harmed again. The matter of the disciples' infighting was thus settled. Chu Tianqing made the judgment, and the Discipline Hall elder would carry it out. Everyone bowed and left the Sky Pillar Hall. However, After Ji Tianqing left the Sky Pillar Hall, he didn't return to the Storm Courtyard. He had more important things to do, and that was to kill Ji Ling. Crippling Ji Ling's cultivation and expelling him from the sect was only the sect's punishment for him. However, Ji Tianqing still wanted revenge. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. When he walked down the Scarlet Firmament Peak, he saw Ji Ling at the foot of the mountain. He was being escorted out of the sect by a discipline hall deacon. Ji Tianqing silently followed, his eyes fixed on Ji Ling's back. His eyes surged with cold killing intent. About an hour later, the discipline hall deacon escorted Ji Ling out of the Sky Pillar sect. At the foot of a mountain several miles away from the Sky Pillar sect, the discipline hall deacon threw Ji Ling to the side of the road and turned to return to the Sky Pillar sect. Ji Ling's clothes were stained with blood as he lay in the grass by the side of the road. He was still cursing furiously. Ji Tianqing, you little bastard, there will be a day when this king will take revenge. And the Sky Pillar sect. Such a cold and heartless sect. One day, this king will wash away today's humiliation and exterminate you bastards. Just as he finished speaking, a cold laugh sounded in his ear. Ji Ling, you definitely won't have the chance to take revenge. Looking for recommendation tickets and bookmarks. This Friday will be faster. 6 chapters a day. I hope that brothers who like this book can give a 5-star review. Chapter 136. Ji Ling's body trembled when he heard the sneer. He immediately turned his head and saw a young man in a green robe standing 10 steps behind him. It was Ji Tianqing, whom he hated to the core and wanted to get rid of even in his dreams. Seeing Ji Tianqing appear with a sneer on his face, Ji Ling's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad premonition. He stared at Ji Tianqing vigilantly and shouted, Ji Tianqing, what are you trying to do? Haha, what am I trying to do? Don't you know? Ji Tianqing sneered as he approached him. His entire body was filled with killing intent. Ji Ling immediately panicked and hurriedly retreated. With a face full of anger she shouted, Ji Tianqing, don't forget your identity. You're still a subject of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Even if my cultivation is crippled, I am still a prince of the Royal Azure Dynasty. Ji Tianqing sneered disdainfully. Haha, this is the ancient star realm, not the Royal Azure Dynasty. Your status as a prince is nothing here. Now that you have been expelled from the sect and your cultivation is crippled, you are a homeless dog. If I don't kill you now, when will I get my revenge? Ji Ling was filled with anxiety and fear. His eyes darted around as he tried to think of a way to escape. He retreated and shouted coldly, Ji Tianqing, don't forget. Your Ji family is still in the Imperial City. Your father and your family are still subjects of the Royal Azure Dynasty. If you dare to kill me, the Imperial clan will definitely exterminate your entire Ji clan. Not even a chicken or dog will be spared. You better not be rash. Think of your father and your family. It would have been fine if Ji Ling didn't mention the Ji family and Ji Chongkong, but when he used them to threaten Ji Tianqing became even more furious and murderous. Ji Ling, you despicable, shameless, cruel and vicious bastard. How dare you use the Ji family to threaten me? You will die today without a doubt. After saying that, Ji Tianqing didn't waste any more words with Ji Ling. His figure flashed as he rushed to Ji Ling's side and punched his head. Ji Ling's cultivation was crippled and he was now an ordinary person. It was impossible for him to dodge Ji Tianqing's punch. Bang! With a muffled sound, Ji Ling was sent flying more than 3 meters away. He rolled into the bushes by the roadside. After suffering such a heavy blow, he did not faint. However, blood flowed from his mouth and nose, making him look even more hideous. He struggled to crawl out from the bushes and roared hysterically, Ji Tianqing. This is the ancient star. Ji Tianqing sneered disdainfully. This is no longer the territory of the Sky-bearing sect. Moreover, you're no longer a disciple of the Sky-bearing sect. Your life is as cheap as a dog's. That punch was for coup. Now I want to avenge myself. Go to hell. He roared and rushed to Ji Ling again. He waved his fists and smashed them at Ji Ling's chest and throat. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled sounds rang out. Ji Ling was sent flying again. He flew more than 5 meters away and fell into the dense forest. He rolled a few times before coming to a stop. Then, his head tilted and he breathed his last. There was no longer any sound. Dark red blood flowed out of his mouth and nose and sprinkled on the grass. Ji Tianxing's palms burst with violent true essence. He had already shattered Ji Ling's heart and throat. A moment later, Ji Tian walked to the side of Ji Ling's corpse and reached out to check his pulse and breathing. After confirming that Ji Ling was dead, Ji Tianxing turned and walked out of the forest. Standing on the bluestone path, he loosened his clenched fists and let out a long breath. The blood feud that had plagued him for 3 years had finally dissipated with Ji Ling's death. He had finally avenged Ji Ku and himself. Heaven's justice is clear. Retribution is not pleasant. Ji Tianxing roared at the sky, venting the hatred that had been suppressed in his heart. He felt refreshed. After a while, he quickly returned to the Sky Pillar sect. As for Ji Ling's corpse, he was too lazy to pay attention to it. This mountain range was uninhabited, and there were no Sky Pillar sect disciples patrolling it. There were many fierce beasts roaming about. It wouldn't be long before Ji Ling's corpse was eaten by the beasts. Half an hour later, Ji Tianxing returned to the Sky Pillar sect. He walked to the foot of the Sky Pillar peak, but didn't go up the mountain to return to the storm courtyard. He turned and walked to the Spirit Medicine Peak. He decided to go to the Spirit Medicine Hall first to see the seriously injured Ji Ku. After he left, a black-robed figure appeared on the path at the foot of the mountain. This figure was a middle-aged man. It was the Discipline Hall deacon who had escorted Ji Ling away from the Sky Pillar sect. He quickly rushed to the Scarlet Firmament Peak and entered the Sky Pillar Hall. The hall was empty except for the sect master, Chu Tianxing. He was sitting on the seat of honor with his eyes closed, as if he was waiting for something. After the Discipline Hall deacon entered the hall, he bowed to Chu Tianxing before walking to him and reporting in a low voice. Reporting to the sect master, this subordinate secretly observed that Ji Tianxing had been tailing Ji Ling all the way in the forest 15 kilometers away. Chu Tianxing had long expected this result. His expression didn't change as he calmly asked, "Are you sure Ji Ling is dead?" The Discipline Hall deacon nodded and said, "This subordinate is sure." "And that's good." Chu Tianxing nodded and said with an indifferent expression, "This matter is over. You may withdraw." The Discipline Hall deacon quickly bowed and excused himself from the hall. After a moment, Chu Tianxing muttered in a low voice, "This ending is just right. Ji Ling already knows the secret of our sect. How can I let him leave alive?" Clearly, he had already intended to kill Ji Ling when he ordered him to expel him from the sect. In the evening, the sky was dark. In the forest more than 10 kilometers away from the Sky Pillar sect, Ji Ling's corpse was still lying in the grass. The blood on the grass had already solidified. Ji Ling's corpse was also cold and gradually stiffened. Not far away in the forest, a few low beast roars could be heard from time to time. Clearly, wild beasts were approaching. There was no doubt that Ji Ling's corpse would become the wild beast's dinner when night fell. But at this moment, a black wind suddenly blew from the forest, and 2 balls of black fog appeared out of thin air. Swoosh, swoosh. 2 tall figures in black robes appeared out of thin air in the forest. Their bodies were shrouded in hazy black chi. They were the Blood Moon Commandery Princess and the High Priest of the Demon Tribe. They silently passed through the forest and arrived beside Ji Ling's corpse. The Blood Moon Commandery Princess lowered her voice and said, "According to our investigation, this child once entered the sealing formation with Chu Tianxing. He should be useful to us." "High Priest, he just died not long ago. Can you check if you can use the Blood Demon's secret technique to extract his soul?" The High Priest stretched out his hand. His palm was filled with black fog that enveloped Ji Ling's corpse. He seemed to be using some secret technique. After a moment, he looked up at the Blood Moon Commandery Princess and nodded solemnly. Joy flashed through the Blood Moon Commandery Princess's eyes. She said in a deep voice, "Bring him back. We must use him." Then the High Priest stretched out his hand and grabbed Ji Ling's corpse. He left the forest with the Blood Moon Commandery Princess and turned into black fog before disappearing. Chapter 137. When night fell, Ji Tianxing left the Spirit Medicine Hall and returned to the Wind Cloud Courtyard. He had just visited Ji Ku and chatted with her for a long time. Knowing that Ku's life was not in danger and that she would recover after a month of rest, he was finally relieved. After returning to the Wind Cloud Courtyard, he didn't dare to sleep and quickly entered the secret room to heal and cultivate. The day after tomorrow was the end of the month and Han Qiuxing would be testing everyone's alchemy. Ji Tianxing had been locked up in the Dark Wind Cave for 10 days and was unable to practice alchemy. He had already fallen behind the other disciples. But even so, he wasn't willing to give up on the Wind Cloud Courtyard's first monthly exam and still wanted to participate in the exam the day after tomorrow. The night quickly passed. After a night of cultivation, Ji Tianqing's injuries had recovered a lot and his complexion had clearly improved. The next morning, after washing up, he left the Wind Cloud Courtyard and headed to the Grand Peace Palace. Although he hadn't been to the Grand Peace Palace for 10 days, he had been locked up in the Dark Wind Cave and couldn't do as he wished. Now that he had regained his freedom, Han Qiuxing's punishment of sweeping hadn't passed yet. He obviously had to follow the sect's rules and continue sweeping the Grand Peace Palace. When the sun rose, Ji Tianqing arrived at the entrance of the Grand Peace Palace. The mute sword servant guarding the door hadn't seen him for 10 days and was stunned when he saw his figure. Ji Tianqing could only explain to the sword servant before he was allowed to enter. After entering the Grand Peace Palace, he consciously took the broom and bamboo basket and swept the dust and leaves in the triple courtyard. However, he had only cleaned for a while when the pill room's door opened. Xiang Wuji opened the door and walked out. He stood under the eaves and yawned, stretching his body. His white hair and beard were still stained with medicinal dregs. When he saw Ji Tianqing in the courtyard, he couldn't help but be stunned. After he came back to his senses, he laughed and scolded. "You stinking brat, you haven't swept in half a month. How come you're back today?" Ji Tianqing hurriedly cupped his hands and bowed to him. Then he briefly explained the matter. After Xiang Wuji heard this, the smile on his face became even more mocking. He said with a smile, "Taz, you're really unlucky. You've only been in the sect for less than a month, and you've already encountered so many troubles. You've even been locked up for half a month." Ji Tianqing was speechless and could only smile bitterly. Xiang Wuji yawned again and suddenly thought of something. He waved his hand and said, "Little brat, since you haven't swept the floor for half a month, you should do some work for this old man today. You don't have to sweep the floor anymore. Go to the pill room and help this old man keep an eye on the medicine in the pill furnace. Don't make any mistakes, or else this old man will beat you to death. This old man has stayed up all night. I'm going back to my room to sleep for a while." Then, without waiting for Ji Tianqing's approval, he went back to his room to sleep with his hands behind his back. Ji Tianqing revealed a helpless expression. He could only put down the broom and bamboo basket and enter the pill room to look after the pill furnace. There were 3 pill furnaces in the pill room. The bronze pill furnace in the middle, which was as tall as a person, was emitting green smoke. There was an array at the bottom of the furnace that was constantly emitting a raging fire. He didn't know what kind of medicine was placed in the pill furnace, but the smoke that came out carried a thick fragrance of grass and wood. What Ji Tianqing needed to do was very simple. He only needed to keep an eye on the pill furnace and ensure that no accidents occurred. As long as the array in the pill furnace didn't stop, the fire wouldn't be extinguished. Ji Tianqing sat next to the pill furnace. After staring at it for a while, he felt a little bored. He looked around and saw that on the table in the corner, there were a few old books. These books were all related to alchemy. They were flipped open and placed on the table. Ji Tianqing picked up one of the ancient books. After reading a few pages, his expression changed and a hint of joy flashed across his eyes. This ancient book contains profound knowledge about alchemy. Outer sect disciples can't even come into contact with it. I didn't expect that the old man would place these precious books on the table so casually. I have to read more when he's sleeping. It'll be difficult to see them again in the future. Thus, he sat in front of the table and carefully read the alchemy book. Time passed quietly. Unknowingly, half a day had passed. Ji Tianqing finished reading the entire book and didn't feel hungry or tired. After reading the entire alchemy book, his understanding of alchemy had deepened. He gained many insights and thoughts. Previously, he still had many things that he didn't understand about alchemy. Now that these problems were easily solved, he was enlightened. Unknowingly, his alchemy skills and knowledge had increased by a lot. At noon, Xiang Wuji was still sleeping in his room. He hadn't shown his face yet. Ji Tianqing put down the book and started to think about the content of the monthly examination tomorrow. The monthly examination is tomorrow. We have to refine the spirit accumulation pill, green jade pill, and heart-nourishing pill. It's a pity that I haven't practiced before. The chances of failure are very high. When he thought of this, he became anxious and worried. He frowned and thought for a while. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked at the bronze cauldron not far away. He then looked at the medicine cabinets around him. Suddenly, a bold idea popped up in his mind. The old man has a cauldron and all kinds of herbs. Why don't I borrow his alchemy room and try to refine those 3 pills? Anyway, the old man has a good heart. Those 3 pills are only top-grade elemental level. The ingredients aren't that expensive. The old man shouldn't mind, right? After hesitating for a while, Ji Tianqing mustered up his courage and began to try refining the pills. He followed the formula of the 3 pills and gathered all the ingredients in the medicine cabinets. Then, he activated the array of the bronze cauldron and used his true yuan fire to preheat the cauldron. When everything was ready, he began to refine the spirit accumulation pill. He followed the fixed order and placed the 12 herbs into the cauldron. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. The spirit accumulation pill should be ready. However, when Ji Tianqing opened the lid of the cauldron, he smelled a burnt smell. When he opened the cauldron, he found that there were no pills in the cauldron. There was only a pile of black ash. My first attempt at refining pills and I actually failed. Luckily no one saw it. Otherwise it would be so embarrassing. Ji Tianqing was a little embarrassed. He hurriedly cleaned up the black ash in the cauldron. However, Xiang Wuji had come to the alchemy room. He was leaning on the door and looking at him with a cold smile. The ingredients in the alchemy room are correct. The steps are also correct. But you forgot to control the fire. You idiot. You only know how to follow the instructions. How can you successfully refine the pills? Ji Tianqing's body shook and he turned to look at the door. Seeing Xiang Wuji, he hurriedly squeezed out an awkward smile. Senior, why are you awake? Aren't you going to sleep a little longer? The cold smile on Xiang Wuji's face deepened as he scolded. This old man can smell something burning from 3 rooms away. How can I sleep? Humph. I'm afraid that if I sleep a little longer, you'll burn all my herbs like firewood. Chapter 138. Even though Xiang Wuji's tone was unfriendly and he even scolded Ji Tianqing. But Ji Tianqing realized that the old man didn't seem to have any intention of stopping or blaming him. He thought back to what the old man said and instantly understood the reason for his failure. So it's because I didn't control the fire properly and turned the pill into ashes. At this time, Xiang Wuji walked to the corner and sat on the table, looking down at Ji Tianqing. It's just a spirit-nourishing pill. If you can't make it today, don't even think about walking out of Graydon Palace. Brat, prick up your ears and listen carefully. It takes an hour to make the spirit-nourishing pill. There are 4 stages in which you need to control the fire. When Xian Ming Master enters the cauldron, you need to control the gentle fire. When AI Song Zi enters the cauldron, you need to control the martial fire. Even though Xiang Wuji's attitude was domineering and his tone was disdainful and mocking. However, Ji Tianqing was still grateful to him and listened attentively to his advice. After listening, he cleaned the cauldron and started to make the pill again. This time, he was extra careful and remembered every step of the process. He followed Xiang Wuji's instructions and controlled the fire in the cauldron at the crucial time. Unknowingly, another hour passed and the spirit-nourishing pill should be out of the cauldron. Ji Tianqing was a little nervous and slowly lifted the lid of the cauldron. A faint medicinal fragrance wafted out and instantly lifted his spirits. He looked down and saw a light green pill lying in the array pattern at the bottom of the cauldron. It's done. I've finally made it. Ji Tianqing's face was full of smiles as he murmured. Xiang Wuji was holding a green calabash and drinking. Hearing his words, he couldn't help but pout. With the guidance of a grandmaster like me, if you still can't make it, then you might as well kill yourself. As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed the cauldron. Even from a dozen meters away, he caught the spirit-nourishing pill in the cauldron and looked at it. Yes, it's a top-grade origin-grade pill and has 3 patterns. It's barely passable. After saying that, the black thumb ring on his thumb flashed with a white light, and the spirit-nourishing pill was put into it. Ji Tianqing stared blankly for a moment before he asked doubtfully, Senior, what do you mean by 3 pill veins? Xiang Wuji glanced at him and said indifferently, pill veins. Only when the pill is transparent and the medicinal properties of the pill are high will they appear. The more pill veins there are, the higher the quality of the pill. Ji Tianqing was suddenly enlightened. He nodded and said, Disciple understands. This principle is just like forging. Cloud patterns will only appear on the blade if the quality of the sword is high. On the other hand, those swords with flat and smooth blades without any markings are usually just ordinary goods. Only then did Xiang Wuji reveal a gratified smile. He nodded and said, You aren't that stupid. You got it so quickly. Ji Tianqing smiled but didn't say anything. In his heart he thought, if that's the case, then the key to Deacon Han's test is the pill veins. Basically, everyone can successfully refine 3 origin grade pills, all of which are top-grade origin grade pills. If you want to differentiate between good and bad, you have to look at the number of pill veins. Next, he tried to refine the spirit-nourishing pill again. This time, he was even more focused and serious. After half an hour, the spirit-nourishing pill was refined. It actually had 4 pill veins. Xiang Wuji reached out and grabbed the pill. He looked at it for a moment before putting it back into his thumb ring. Not bad, not bad. You have a talent for alchemy. Don't go back to the Wind Cloud Courtyard. Stay here with me and be an alchemy boy. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. He pretended not to hear him and continued to refine the green jade pill. With his previous alchemy experience, he succeeded in refining the emerald jade pill for the first time. However, only 1 pill pattern appeared. Xiang Wuji gave him a few pointers on the side. He tried for the second time and finally raised the number of pill veins to 3. Outside the window, the sun had already set. According to tradition, Ji Tianqing should leave the Grand Peace Palace at this time. However, Xiang Wuji didn't chase him away and he didn't want to leave either. He continued to refine the heart-nourishing pill. The first time he refined the heart-nourishing pill, there was a problem with his technique. He failed and the ingredients turned into black ash. He was very embarrassed. Xiang Wuji also angrily scolded him. However, after scolding him, Xiang Wuji still pointed out his mistake and gave him a few pointers. Ji Tianqing tried for the second time and finally succeeded in refining a heart-nourishing pill with 2 pill veins. He wasn't satisfied with this and tried again. After spending almost 2 hours, he finally refined a spirit-nourishing pill with 4 pill veins. At this time, night had already fallen. It was very late. Ji Tianqing wanted to continue. He wanted to practice a few more times to ensure that he could pass the test tomorrow. However, Xiang Wuji angrily scolded him and chased him out of the alchemy room. Kid, are you addicted to playing? Are you treating this old man's alchemy room as your practice field? You wasted so many of this old man's ingredients. This old man feels the need to punish you by sweeping the floor for another month. Without waiting for Xiang Wuji to finish speaking, Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bid farewell. He ran out of the Grand Peace Palace like a wisp of smoke. When Ji Tianqing returned to the Storm Courtyard, it was already late at night. Early the next morning, the Storm Courtyard's main hall rang with the sound of the gathering bell. Ji Tianqing had already finished his cultivation and walked out of the secret room. When he heard the bell, he quickly rushed to the main hall. When he entered the main hall, Han Qiuxing and Du Wu weren't there. However, a few disciples had already arrived. Those disciples hadn't seen Ji Tianqing for more than 10 days. They had already heard about the internal strife between Ji Tianqing and Ji Ling. Although the truth had already come to light yesterday, Ji Ling was expelled from the sect and Ji Tianqing was proven innocent. However, the gazes with which those disciples looked at Ji Tianqing were still filled with disdain and ridicule. Especially Shi Jingqing and Emo. They had long been resentful of Ji Tianqing. At this time, they were discussing as if there was no one else around. Haha, Ji Tianqing, that kid was imprisoned in the Dark Wind Cave for more than 10 days. I reckon that his brain isn't normal, right? If you ask me, we should definitely stay away from people from a small country like the Clear Sky Kingdom. They left thousands of miles to come to the sect. Not only did they not unite and help each other, they even schemed against each other and set each other up. We must be on guard against these insidious villains who only know how to fight among themselves. Emo said sarcastically while staring at Ji Tianqing with a sneer. His eyes were full of contempt. Shi Jingqing also nodded in agreement. With a face full of disdain he said, "Yes, especially that Ji Ling. She even wanted to murder her own niece. How vicious." Fortunately, he was expelled from the sect. Otherwise, we would all be on tenterhooks. The ancients said that barren hills and turbulent rivers have unruly people. I think this is true. The people of the Clear Sky Kingdom are despicable, sinister, hypocritical and disgusting. Chapter 139. Emo and Shi were singing the same tune, cursing at the mulberry tree and the locust tree. The other disciples looked on coldly. They looked at Ji Tianqing with ridicule, taking pleasure in his misfortune. Ji Tianqing's face suddenly became gloomy. He stared at Emo and Shi with cold eyes. You two only know how to criticize others behind their backs. Do you have the face to criticize others with such despicable behavior? Moreover, today is the end of the month exam. You two are jumping up and down like clowns. Aren't you afraid that you will fail the exam and be laughed at by others? Emo and Shi faces suddenly changed. They stared at Ji Tianqing angrily. Boy, who do you think you are? How dare you scold us? Humph. You were locked in the dark wind cave for more than 10 days. You still dare to participate in the exam? I'm afraid you haven't even learned how to refine pills. When you fail in refining pills, you will be scolded in public by Deacon Han. Let's see if you still have the face to stay in the wind cloud courtyard. Ji Tianqing looked at the two of them from the corner of his eyes and sneered disdainfully. Hee, even if my alchemy skills are ordinary, I'm still much better than you two trash who only know how to talk. What Emo and Shi were most proud of was that their attainments in alchemy surpassed other disciples. Being scolded by Ji Tianqing in public, the two were furious. Their faces were ashen. Ji Tianqing, you are courting death. Boy, I think you are tired of living. When the two of them finished speaking, another two disciples walked into the hall. One of them was Nie Hao. Nie Hao saw Ji Tianqing and quickly walked over. He greeted him with a smile and asked about the situation with concern. Seeing Emo and Shi angry faces, he guessed that the two had a conflict with Ji Tianqing. Therefore he patted Ji Tianqing's shoulder and comforted him with a smile. Brother Ji, don't mind them. Don't ruin your mood. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, that's right. Two mad dogs are randomly biting people. I can't bite back. After all, I'm a human. Nie Hao chuckled and glanced at Emo and Shi with a playful look. Emo and Shi's faces were livid with anger. They looked like they were gnashing their teeth, but they didn't dare to do anything on the spot. After all, Han Xiaoxing and Du Wu had already arrived at the entrance of the hall. Behind the two deacons, there was a disciple in a green robe following behind them. When Ji Tianqing saw this person, he was stunned and his face turned gloomy. Because this green-robed disciple was actually Lu Mingyang. Han Xiaoxing and Du Wu passed through the main hall and stood at the head seats. When all the disciples had arrived and quieted down, Han Xiaoxing announced seriously, everyone knows that Ji Ling has been expelled from our sect. From today onwards, Lu Mingyang will join our Wind Cloud Academy. He will cultivate and study with everyone. Han Xiaoxing only gave a simple introduction. He didn't mention that Lu Mingyang was banished to the outer sect and came to the Wind Cloud Academy. After introducing Lu Mingyang, he announced, today is the last day of the month. It's also the end of the month assessment day for our academy. In this month, everyone has meticulously studied the Tao of alchemy. In a moment, I will examine the results of your studies and see if you've studied diligently. After saying this, he divided the 10 disciples into 2 rows and sat on opposite sides of the main hall. Du Wu also took out 10 pill furnaces from his black thumb ring and the materials to refine 3 types of pills. He distributed them to everyone. When everyone was ready, Han Xiaoxing loudly announced, from now on, you will refine the spirit accumulation pill, green jade pill and heart nourishing pill. The time limit is 4 hours. If you don't succeed after the time limit, you will be considered a failure. Failure will be punished. After 4 hours, I will rank you according to the quality of the pills you refine. After Han Xiaoxing finished speaking, the assessment officially began. Ji Tianqing was the same as the other 9 disciples. He didn't dare to waste any time. He wholeheartedly immersed himself in refining the pills. Although he was in a hurry, he wasn't impatient at all. He first checked and cleaned the copper pill furnace. After removing some of the impurities in the furnace, he activated the true fire array inside the furnace. His palms were pressed against the furnace. He continuously poured his true essence into the furnace, urging the array to release the true fire. After the true fire stabilized, the furnace was preheated. Only then did he place the herbs into the furnace step by step. He remembered the steps of alchemy. In his mind, he recalled Xiang Wuji's instructions. He methodically began to refine the spirit accumulation pill. The other disciples were the same. Their faces were full of concentration and their movements were very fast. Han Xiaoxing and Du Wu stood at the head of the table. They looked down at the 10 disciples and silently observed them. Time quietly passed. 2 hours quickly passed. After 2 hours of observation, the 2 deacons also saw some clues. Emo and Shi Jingqing, who were born in a family of alchemy, had the highest attainments in alchemy. Their movements were simple and smooth. It was obvious that they had a lot of experience. As for the other disciples, although their movements were a bit anxious and clumsy, they had also started. It was obvious that they had studied and practiced. Ji Tianqing's performance surprised Han Xiaoxing and Du Wu. The two of them thought that Ji Tianqing, who had been imprisoned in the dark wind cave for more than 10 days, wouldn't be able to practice alchemy. It was very likely that he wouldn't be able to pass the assessment. However, they saw that Ji Tianqing's movements were very skillful. His alchemy techniques and steps were also very clever. It was as if he had been taught by an expert. The two of them secretly looked at each other and saw the smile in each other's eyes. Then, their gazes fell on Lu Mingyang. Lu Mingyang's expression was a bit anxious. His eyes contained a trace of confusion. He was refining pills while also studying. Looking at his posture, it was obvious that he had never practiced alchemy before. However, Han Xiaoxing and Du Wu had already expected that he would perform so poorly. He had just entered the wind cloud courtyard. The two of them already had an answer in their hearts. In this month's end assessment, Lu Mingyang would definitely be at the bottom. Unknowingly, the 4-hour deadline was almost up. When there was still half an hour until the deadline, Shi Jingqing was the first to finish refining the 3rd pill. He finally let out a sigh of relief. He secretly looked at the other disciples. Seeing that they had all finished their tasks, he couldn't help but reveal a smug sneer. Not long after, Emo also finished refining the 3rd heart-nourishing pill. Only then did he raise his head to look at the others. Seeing that Shi Jingqing had already finished his task and was looking at him with a faint smile, he couldn't help but frown and reveal a trace of hostility. It was obvious that the two of them had ignored the other disciples and treated each other as competitors. After another 100 breaths of time, Ji Tianqing also stopped refining. His face revealed a gratified smile. Beads of sweat could be seen on his forehead. His face was also slightly pale. After all, in the past 4 hours, he had used all his strength to refine the pills. His true essence and mental energy had been greatly consumed. However, he was certain that the 3 pills he had just refined were of higher quality than the ones he had refined in the Great Peace Palace yesterday. Chapter 140. The 4-hour time limit was finally over. The 9 disciples stopped and retracted their hands, ending the refining process. Only Lu Mingyang was sweating profusely and was still fiddling with the cauldron. Han Xiaoxing knocked on the table with his finger and said in a deep voice, "Time's up. Now, take out the pills you just refined and hand them to Deacon Du. I'll judge the quality and rank you." Ji Tianqing and the 8 disciples took out the pills they refined and handed them to Du Wu. Only Lu Mingyang sat on the spot dejectedly and looked at the cauldron gloomily. Black smoke was still rising from the cauldron and a burnt smell was constantly wafting out. The few disciples closer to him could not help but chuckle. Immediately after, Du Wu handed the first batch of pills to Han Xiaoxing. There were a total of 3 pills in this batch. Han Xiaoxing picked up the pills and observed them carefully before announcing the results. Wei Jinhong successfully refined 3 pills. The spirit accumulation pill has 1 pattern, the green jade pill has no pattern, and the heart-nourishing pill has 1 pattern. There are a total of 3 pills with 2 patterns. When he heard Han Xiaoxing's words, the disciple called Wei Jinhong was stunned and revealed a puzzled expression. He was not the only one. The other disciples were also stunned and looked at Han Xiaoxing in confusion. Only Ji Tianqing, Shi Jingqing, and Emo remained calm, as if they had a card up their sleeves. Han Xiaoxing swept his gaze across everyone with a dignified expression and said in a deep voice, "Looking at your puzzled faces, you must want to ask me what pill patterns mean, right?" Although the disciples did not speak, they all nodded secretly. Han Xiaoxing shot a glance at Shi Jingqing and opened his mouth to say, "Shi Jingqing, you explain to them what pill marks mean." Being named by Han Xiaoxing, Shi Jingqing revealed a smug smile as though he had received a great honor. He hurriedly stood up and said confidently, "The so-called pill patterns are the patterns on the surface of the pill. The higher the quality of the pill, the more pill patterns there are." Han Xiaoxing nodded and gestured for him to sit down before lecturing everyone. "Do you understand now?" I let you try refining pills but did not explain the pill patterns to you because I wanted you to study and learn. From identifying medicinal herbs and prescribing to refining pills today, I have always taught you half of it and let you learn the other half by yourself. This is how I train you. I did not expect you to still not understand. You really disappoint me. The few disciples who were being reprimanded immediately looked ashamed and lowered their heads in fear and trepidation. Then, Han Qiuxing picked up the second batch of pills and observed them for a while. Wu Lishan has successfully concocted 3 pills with a total of 3 veins. Then it was the third, fourth, fifth and sixth batch. Han Qiuxing also announced the results of the 4 disciples in turn. Di Bufan has successfully refined 3 elixirs with a total of 2 elixir veins. Gu Jiaming only managed to concoct 2 pills, with a total of 1 pill pattern. Nie Hao has successfully concocted 3 pills with a total of 4 pill veins. The results of these 6 disciples were mediocre in Han Qiuxing's eyes. The one with the best performance was only able to refine 4 pill patterns. Next, it was the 7th batch of pills. After observing for a while, Han Qiuxing's expression softened and he said in a gratified tone, "EMO successfully refined 3 pills with 8 patterns." Hearing this, Shi Jingqing, who was originally nervous, suddenly heaved a sigh of relief and revealed a proud smile. Sure enough, after Han Qiuxing observed the 8th batch of pills, he announced, "Shi Jingqing successfully refined 3 pills with 9 patterns." Emo's face immediately darkened. He looked at Shi Jingqing unwillingly and his eyes were filled with anger. Shi Jingqing's face was full of smiles. He was beaming with joy and had a smug attitude. Although Ji Tianxing and Lu Mingyang's results had not been announced, he already had victory in his hands. He thought that he would win without a doubt. As far as he was concerned, neither Lu Mingyang nor Ji Tianxing had ever practiced pill refining. They would thank the heavens if they could successfully refine 3 pills. They would definitely not surpass him. To Shi Jingqing, the generous reward of first place belonged to him. At this moment, it was Lu Mingyang's turn. Han Qiuxing looked at a broken pill and a pile of black ashes on the table and could not help but frown. He said expressionlessly, "Lu Mingyang failed the test." He only said a few words and did not make any comments. Several disciples all showed a mocking smile, secretly sizing up Lu Mingyang. Their eyes were somewhat playful. Especially Shi Jingqing. Not only did he reveal a contemptuous smile, he could not help but curl his lips as if he was very disdainful of Lu Mingyang. The last batch of pills. This is Ji Tianxing's. Han Qiuxing picked up the 3 pills on the table and observed them one by one. When he saw the first spirit accumulation pill, he could not help but raise his eyebrows and glance at Ji Tianxing with a surprised look. Then, he put down the spirit accumulation pill and picked up the second green jade pill. When he saw the patterns on the surface of the green jade pill, his eyes flashed and he was even more surprised. When it came to the third heart-nourishing pill, his eyes suddenly widened and he looked at Ji Tianxing with a face full of surprise. Looking at his expression and reaction, it was as if he had seen something unbelievable. All the disciples in the hall saw Han Qiuxing's reaction. The few disciples revealed doubtful expressions and secretly sized up Ji Tianxing. Only Shi Jingqing's expression changed and he vaguely had a bad premonition. He glanced sideways at Ji Tianxing with eyes full of vigilance and hostility. Although he guessed that Ji Tianxing might have achieved amazing results, which was why Deacon Han was so surprised. But logic told him that it was absolutely impossible. How could a guy who was locked up in the Black Wind Cave for more than 10 days and did not have time to learn alchemy surpass him? A genius who was proficient in alchemy. At this moment, Shi Jingqing's emotions were very complicated and he was somewhat uneasy. He stared at Han Qiuxing and his nerves were tense as he waited for the results. Finally, Han Qiuxing revealed a face full of smiles and said in a gratified tone, "Ji Tianxing successfully refined 3 pills with a total of 12 pill patterns." When his voice fell, the hall fell silent instantly. All the disciples widened their eyes and revealed looks of disbelief. Especially Shi Jingqing, who was dumbstruck like a wooden chicken and was petrified. He only came back to his senses after a moment and growled indignantly, "That's impossible. 12 pill patterns? Could it be that every single one of his pills reached 4 patterns? He's not proficient in alchemy and was even locked up in the Black Wind Cave for half a month. He had no time to practice at all. Even a genius like me who's proficient in alchemy can't refine every single pill to 4 patterns." Shi Jingqing's emotions were so shocked and indignant that he lost his voice and roared for everyone to hear clearly. The hall immediately quietened down. Han Qiusheng frowned and said in a low voice, Xueqi, although you refined 9 pill patterns, this result is still considered outstanding. But you're too conceited. Do you dare to call yourself a genius in alchemy with such results? If you don't believe that someone else refined 12 pill patterns, then come and see for yourself. Xueqing's expression was ugly to the extreme. After hesitating for a moment, he got up and walked to Han Qiusheng's side and picked up the 3 pills to observe carefully. When he saw clearly that there were indeed 12 pill patterns in those 3 pills, his face turned pale and his entire body trembled. He raised his head to look at Ji Tianqing and saw that Ji Tianqing was also looking at him with a cold smile, his eyes full of contempt. Xueqi suddenly recalled what Ji Tianqing said to him before the test started. Humiliation. This result was not only a huge blow to him, but it was also a severe humiliation. Chapter 141. Although Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. However, the sneer on his face and the disdain in his eyes were like a silent slap on Xueqing's face. Xueqing's face was ashen as he suppressed his anger and humiliation and walked down the high platform. He walked back to his seat and looked down at his feet, muttering absent-mindedly. How is this possible? Why is it like this? First place is obviously mine. I studied alchemy for 5 years and I can't even compare to a bastard from a small country? I can't accept this. Xueqi secretly clenched his fists and turned his head to glare at Ji Tianqing. However, Ji Tianqing ignored him and looked up at Han Qiusheng. At the same time, Han Qiusheng loudly announced the results of the assessment. Lu Mingyang failed this assessment and will be punished to clean the storm courtyard for a month. The quality of the elixirs refined by Ji Tianqing is the best. You will receive 2 profound gold secret elixirs and a profound level upper grade martial skill. The rules of the courtyard are like this: reward the strong and punish the weak. I hope that in the future, you will study hard and don't slack off. After saying this, Han Qiusheng took out 2 pure gold pills and rewarded them to Ji Tianqing. As for the profound level upper grade martial art, Ji Tianqing had to go to the martial arts pavilion to choose and receive it. After giving out the rewards, Han Qiusheng announced the end of the assessment and left the main hall with Du Wu. After the 2 deacons left, all the disciples turned their heads to look at Ji Tianqing, revealing complicated expressions. Xueqi and Emo's faces were full of anger. They coldly glared at Ji Tianqing but didn't say anything. Before the assessment began, they were proud of themselves and ridiculed Ji Tianqing in front of everyone because he couldn't refine pills and how he would have the face to stay in the storm courtyard. In the end, Ji Tianqing won first place and trampled them both. This caused the 2 of them to be so ashamed that they wanted nothing more than to find a hole to crawl into. Their hearts were filled with grievances and unwillingness. They quickly walked out of the hall and returned to their rooms. They did not want to see Ji Tianqing's smug look. The other disciples all stared at the mystic gold secret pill in Ji Tianqing's hand, revealing a strong look of envy and jealousy. The profound gold secret pill. This is a high-grade black-rank medicinal pill. Priceless. This kind of pill has the best effect for a metal-attributed true essence martial artist. Not only can it greatly increase their strength, but it can also refine their metal-attributed true essence. This is definitely a spirit pill that can't be bought with money. I didn't expect Deacon Han to take out 2 mystic gold secret pills as the reward. If I had known earlier, even if I didn't eat or sleep for a month, I would have worked hard to refine pills. Sigh, the world is unpredictable. Who would have thought that Xueqi and Emo, who are proficient in the art of alchemy, would not be able to take first place, and instead, Ji Tianqing, a layman, would take first place. How strange. Ha ha ha, this matter can only be blamed on Xueqi and Emo. They deserve to be humiliated in front of everyone today. Yes, they knew that the content of this month's test was alchemy. How arrogant and despotic they were before. They didn't put us in their eyes at all. Ji Tianqing silently put away the 2 mystic gold secret pills. Listening to the disciples' whispers, he could not help but reveal a trace of a smile. He could hear that Xueqi and Emo were too arrogant before, which had caused the other disciples dissatisfaction. Today, he had taken first place and made Xueqi and Emo lose face. The other disciples also felt relieved and took pleasure in his misfortune. Although he looked calm and indifferent, he was actually a little surprised and pleasantly surprised. Before, he had never thought of taking first place. He only wanted to pass the test successfully and not disappoint Deacon Han, and not let the other disciples see him as a joke. He also did not expect that after practicing for a day in the Great Peace Palace and being scolded and taught by the stinky old man several times, he could refine such a high-quality pill and take first place. Although the stinky old man's temper is a little strange and irritable, he has amazing skills and is also good to me. How about I continue to sweep the floor in the Great Peace Palace tomorrow? Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing suddenly felt that compared to his harvest in this month, the tiredness of sweeping the floor was nothing. At this time, Nie Hao walked over and patted him on the shoulder. Brother Ji, congratulations. I really did not expect the results of the test to be so amazing. You really opened our eyes today. Nie Hao smiled and cupped his hands to congratulate him. His smile was very sincere. Ji Tianqing modestly said a few words and walked out of the main hall side by side with him. Nie Hao returned to his room. Ji Tianqing left the storm courtyard and went to the martial arts pavilion to choose a martial arts cultivation method. The martial arts pavilion was located at the peak of the towering sky peak. It was a magnificent and majestic palace. On the way to the martial arts pavilion, Ji Tianqing was in a good mood. He was silently calculating in his heart. Fortunately, the reward that Deacon Han gave me was to let me choose my own martial arts cultivation method. If he gave me a cultivation method that I could not use, that would be too much of a pity. I am different from ordinary martial artists. Not only do I cultivate the sword heart Dao, but I also cultivate the flying star sword art. Ordinary sword arts are useless to me. After thinking about it, it seems that what I lack the most is a light body cultivation method. Since that is the case, I will choose a light body cultivation method later. Ji Tianqing had wanted to cultivate a light body cultivation method a long time ago. Unfortunately, he never had the chance. This time, he had obtained first place in the test and had the qualifications to choose a black class upper grade martial arts cultivation method. To him, it was simply a timely gift. After arriving at the martial arts pavilion, he entered the main hall on the first floor. He took out his identity token and handed it to the black-robed deacon guarding the martial arts pavilion. The deacon only allowed him to enter after asking about the situation, and briefly introduced the layout of the martial arts pavilion. The first floor of the martial arts pavilion's main hall is filled with origin-level martial arts manuals. The black-class martial arts manuals are all placed on the second floor of the main hall. The third floor of the main hall is filled with miscellaneous manuals. Ji Tianqing understood that the so-called miscellaneous manuals referred to alchemy, array formation, forging and so on. He went straight to the second floor and walked through the spacious main hall filled with bookshelves. He carefully selected the martial arts cultivation method that he wanted. The Sky Pillar sect had been established for 1,000 years and had an incomparably deep foundation. It could be seen from all aspects. Just the martial arts pavilion that was open to inner and outer sect disciples had no less than 100,000 martial arts cultivation methods. Even if it was a precious black class cultivation method, there were at least 10,000 books in the entire second floor of the main hall. Ji Tianqing shuttled through the bookshelves and spent a full 2 hours before finally choosing a cultivation method called Shadowless Step. It was said that after cultivating this black class upper grade Shadowless Step to the extreme, one could reach the mysterious realm of walking as if they were flying and landing without a shadow. Although Ji Tianqing felt that these words were a bit exaggerated, he was still filled with anticipation. After leaving the martial arts pavilion, he couldn't wait to return to the storm courtyard. As soon as he returned to his room, he entered the secret chamber and prepared to cultivate in seclusion. This time, not only did he have to comprehend and cultivate the Shadowless Step, but he also had to consume the precious black gold secret pill. Ji Tianqing's innate attribute was metal. He believed that after consuming the black gold secret pill, his strength would increase explosively. His metal-attributed true essence would also become more powerful and domineering. Chapter 142. Unknowingly, 2 days had passed. After Ji Tianqing took a mystic gold secret elixir, he cultivated in the secret chamber for 2 days before stopping to rest. At this time, he had refined 60% of the mystic gold secret elixir. His strength had increased tremendously, and he had successfully reached LV7 of the true element realm. The remaining 40% of the elixir was distributed in his limbs and bones, and would continue to increase his strength in the future. The surging true essence in his body had also turned pure gold, and its power was very sharp and fierce. In addition, with the help of the mystic gold secret elixir, He had also refined one of his main meridians into a sword vein. Out of his 9 meridians, 3 of them had already been refined into sword veins. Ji Tianqing had a premonition that when he refined all 9 meridians into sword veins, his strength would reach the mystic comprehending realm. He believed that day would not be too far away. After resting for a while, he took out the secret manual of shadowless steps and studied it carefully with the help of the light on the wall. This secret manual only had 18 pages, and each page only had a few hundred words and a picture. In the picture was a small person in a strange posture. The combination of the picture and the words made it easier for him to understand the cultivation method of shadowless steps. After reading through the entire manual, he roughly understood the uniqueness and mystical effects of the shadowless steps. The key to ordinary lightness skills lies in how the waist and legs exert force and leverage. But this shadowless steps is more profound and complicated. It actually requires the mobilization of the joints and strength of the whole body, and it also requires the training of breathing rhythm. Even the weather and terrain can be used to leverage force. In different environments, the effects of shadowless steps will be different. Amazing, really amazing. Ji Tianqing put down the book, and his face was full of amazement. Then, he began to practice according to the cultivation method of shadowless steps. In the evening, the sun was about to set. At the peak of Red Cloud Peak, in a palace called White Cloud Hall, Yun Yao, in a long white dress, was standing under the eaves of the corridor on the 3rd floor of the palace, calmly looking at the setting sun. Not long after, a young man with a sturdy body and a valiant appearance came behind her. This person was Hao Meng. Although Yun Yao didn't turn around, she already knew that Hao Meng had come. She asked calmly, "Junior brother Hao, is there any result from that matter?" Hao Meng nodded and smiled. "Eldest senior sister, 3 days ago, you asked me to investigate Ji Tianqing's background and bloodline. I immediately sent people to investigate. Just now, I received news that there are results. The truth is, as you said, eldest senior sister. Ji Tianqing does indeed possess the Xian sword bloodline. That is the bloodline of the Ji clan. This matter is not difficult to investigate." Then, Hao Meng took out a secret letter and handed it to Yun Yao. Yun Yao took out the letter and read it for a while. She realized that the results of the investigation in the letter were exactly the same as what Ji Tianqing had told her. She already had a plan in mind, so she put the letter into a jade ring on her finger. Hao Meng walked to her side and held the railing of the corridor with both hands. He looked at the setting sun in the sky with a bitter smile on his face. "Eldest senior sister. It's all my fault. Senior brother Bai and I didn't do our job well. We mistakenly thought that Ji Ling was the person the sect was looking for. In the end, we made such a big mistake and disappointed the sect master." Yun Yao said calmly, "It's not your fault. After all, when master gave the mission, he only said that he was looking for a person who could change fate. He didn't give any specific information." Hearing her words, the guilt in Hao Meng's heart lessened a lot. He scratched his head and said with a smile, "When we were in the Imperial Qing dynasty, senior brother Bai and I were very puzzled. Why did you take care of Ji Tianqing so much? Now it seems that eldest senior sister is the wisest. You already had the foresight. However, there's one thing I don't understand. Since eldest senior sister knew that Ji Tianqing was the person the sect master was looking for, why didn't you tell the sect master? Why did you ask me to secretly investigate Ji Tianqing?" At the mention of this question, Yun Yao frowned slightly. After pondering for a moment, she explained, "I believe in Ji Tianqing, but I can't rashly tell master about this. I have to show the corresponding evidence to make master believe me. Moreover, I know master's nature very well. After this incident with Ji Ling, master will not easily believe this result." Although Hao Meng looked burly and honest, he was actually very quick-witted. "So that's how it is, I understand." He nodded and said with a smile, "In that case, I'll leave this matter to you, eldest senior sister. If you have any instructions, feel free to look for me." Yun Yao nodded slightly and didn't say anything more. Hao Meng cupped his hands and said goodbye before turning to go downstairs. Yun Yao stood under the eaves of the corridor for a while until the sun completely disappeared. Then she turned and went downstairs. Then she left her residence, White Cloud Hall, and went to the Sky Raising Hall not far away to find Sect Master Chu Tianqing. Night was about to fall, but Chu Tianqing wasn't in the Sky Raising Hall. When Yun Yao found him, he was busy dealing with the sect's affairs in the study. Yun Yao stopped at the door of the study and bowed. Master, disciple has something important to report. Chu Tianxing put down the file in his hand, rubbed his eyebrows, and turned to look at Yun Yao at the door. What's the matter? Come in and talk. Yun Yao walked into the study, took out a letter from the jade ring, and placed it on the desk in front of Chu Tianxing. Master, according to the prophecy of the star chart, the person our sect is looking for is from the royal Azure dynasty and has the bloodline of the Black Sword sect. Disciple has investigated and confirmed that this person is Ji Tianxing. This secret letter is the result of the investigation of our sect's spies in the royal Azure dynasty. Please have a look. Chu Tianxing immediately raised his eyebrows and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. Ji Tianxing? It's actually him? He quickly opened the letter and took out the secret letter to read carefully. A moment later, he finished reading the contents of the letter and couldn't help but nod. I see. I didn't expect this matter to be so complicated. No wonder Ji Tianxing and Ji Ling have a blood feud. Yun Yao nodded and said, the bloodline of the Black Sword sect is the ancestral bloodline of the Ji family. Ji Ling used an evil item like the soul-seizing bead and carefully planned to seize the bloodline of the Black Sword sect. Chu Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment before saying in a low voice, however, Ji Tianxing only once had the bloodline of the Black Sword sect. His bloodline has been taken away by Ji Ling. I'm afraid he can't restart the 9 dragons trapping devil array now. This matter is of great importance. The underground devil's den is a secret place of our sect. Master has already made a mistake on Ji Ling's matter. How can I make the same mistake again? Yun Yao, even if you help Master investigate the truth and results, Master can't let Ji Tianxing try to restart the array. He has only been in the sect for a month. He may not have much loyalty and trust in our sect. Master needs to slowly observe him. Chapter 143. Yun Yao was the head disciple of the Sky-bearing sect and had been raised as the successor of the sect master. She had the right to ask about and understand the important matters of the sect. She had followed Chu Tianxing for many years, so she knew his nature very well. She had expected Chu Tianxing to have such a reaction after learning the truth. She cupped her hands and bowed to Chu Tianxing. Master, disciple is only helping you solve your problem. Disciple doesn't have any better suggestions on how to deal with this matter. It's all up to you. Chu Tianxing nodded and said with a gratified expression, You're considerate. Go and rest. Yun Yao cupped her hands and left the study. After she left, Chu Tianxing was silent for a while before taking out the fated star chart. He used a secret technique to deduce the heavenly cycle. As his true essence poured into the black turtle shell, countless silver dots began to move and the pattern on the turtle shell changed. After about 100 breaths, the dots of light arranged themselves into several silver lines and formed a strange pattern. Chu Tianxing observed for a while and a gratified expression flashed through his eyes. He nodded and said, Ji Ling is dead now, but the person on the fated star chart is still in the sect. It should be Ji Tianxing. He put away the black turtle shell and quickly left the study. He used his true essence to condense a pair of flaming wings and flew as fast as lightning towards the Great Peace Palace. Whoosh! Chu Tianxing landed at the entrance of the Great Peace Palace and told the mute sword slave his intentions. After the mute sword slave entered the Great Peace Palace to report, Chu Tianxing led him into the depths of the palace. When Chu Tianxing entered the third courtyard, Xiang Wuji was holding a white jade water bottle and watering the spirit herbs in the nursery. After the mute sword slave left, Chu Tianxing bowed to Xiang Wuji and reported, Martial uncle, disciple has something to report. We've found the person who truly defies fate. Xiang Wuji slowly watered the plants and put the white jade water bottle into his black thumb ring before leading Chu Tianxing into the room. Let's go inside and talk. Chu Tian followed Xiang Wuji into the room. After Xiang Wuji sat down, he said with a solemn expression, Martial uncle, the person we are looking for is the new disciple of the outer sect storm courtyard, Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing? That little bastard? Xiang Wuji raised his eyebrows and revealed a strange smile. Hee, it's actually him? How interesting. Seeing his strange expression, Chu Tianxing revealed a puzzled look. Martial uncle, do you know him? Xiang Wuji nodded, his smile slightly mocking. That kid made a mistake before and was punished to sweep the floor of Great Peace Palace for half a month. Chu Tianxing suddenly understood. So that's how it is. Xiang Wuji thought for a moment and asked, "Since you're sure that the person you're looking for is him, what are you going to do?" Chu Tian said with a solemn expression. "Although Ji Tianxing is the person we are looking for, his Xian sword blood vein was taken away by Ji Ling. I wonder how much of the Xian sword blood vein he still has left? I'm not sure if he can open the 9-dragon trapping demon formation, so I won't easily bring him into the underground cavern and try to open the formation. I've decided to secretly observe him and see if he's a promising talent and if he's loyal to the sect. In addition, the star chart indicates that the person is him. Even if he can't open the formation, it's very likely that he'll become a pillar of the sect. He's too weak right now, so I've decided to secretly test and nurture him. When he's strong enough, I'll bring him into the underground cavern and try to open the formation." Xiang Wuji frowned and thought for a moment, then nodded. This is a relatively safe method. This old man agrees. However, you have to pay more attention to the underground cavern. Don't let that unparalleled demon break the seal. Chu Tianxing said seriously, "Of course, I'll pay more attention. There definitely won't be any problems." "And that's good." Xiang Wuji nodded and waved his hand. "If there's nothing else, you can leave." Chu Tianxing bowed before leaving the Great Peace Palace with peace of mind. After he left, the room fell into silence. Xiang Wuji's smile disappeared. He frowned and murmured, "That little brat has the bloodline of Xian Jian. In that case, he might be the descendant of Qiu Yu's disciple? My most important disciple left, but after 100 years, her great-grandson came to this old man's side. Haha, the heavens really care for this old man." Thinking of this, a mocking smile appeared on his wrinkled old face. "Humph, damn brat. It seems this old man has to think of a way to keep him in Great Peace Palace. It'll make it easier for this old man to teach him." The first light of dawn shone into the room through the window. Ji Tianxing ended his seclusion and walked out of the secret room. After last night's comprehension and cultivation, he had grasped the basics of the shadowless step. The cultivation of the shadowless step was divided into beginner, small success, expert, great success, and perfect. Even though he had just started and hadn't completely grasped the shadowless step, he had already tested it. But he had already tested it. After using the shadowless step, his speed was twice as fast as before and he saved more vital energy. The facts proved that this high-profound rank shadowless step was indeed unique and extremely mysterious. After washing up, Ji Tianxing walked out of the room and went to the mountain peak to find Deacon Du Wu. Today was the 2nd day of the 6th month. He remembered that he had not received his monthly allowance for this month. That was 10 vital energy dan and 8 ling fruits. It was enough for him to cultivate for a month. In the mortal world, these cultivation resources could be sold for a sky-high price of 10 million taels of silver. Ji Tianxing used half an hour to find Du Wu to receive his monthly allowance. Not long after he returned to the Wind Cloud courtyard, the bell to gather sounded in the main hall. He hurriedly walked out of the room and rushed to the main hall to gather. Lu Mingyang, who was sweeping the yard, quickly put down the broom and ran into the main hall. Not long after, the 10 disciples had all gathered. Han Qiuxing and Du Wu walked in. Han Qiuxing walked to the front and announced with a solemn expression, "Everyone, a new month has begun. This month, you will be learning Array Dao. The rules are the same as last month. I will teach you the basics of Array Dao, but you have to study and learn more advanced knowledge. At the end of the month, I will still test you. The losers will be punished and the winners will be rewarded." The faces of the disciples turned solemn. A few of them clenched their fists and secretly decided to work hard and strive to be the winner of the month's test. Ji Tianxing was born in a family of blacksmiths. He had dabbled in Array Dao. Even if he was not an expert, he was still at the entry level. But he knew that with only the entry level of Array Dao, he would not be able to pass the test. He had to work hard. Among the many disciples, only Lu Mingyang's eyes flashed with joy as he secretly rejoiced. This was because he was born in the Chongfeng country's royal family. Since young, he had been taught and taught by the state teacher. He was proficient in Array Dao. These days, he was punished by Han Qiuxing to clean the Wind Cloud courtyard. Every day, he had to endure the strange looks and mockery of the other disciples. His heart had long been filled with anger. He silently endured it. Today, after hearing that this month's task was Array Dao, he suddenly saw the hope of being able to hold his head high. He gritted his teeth and growled in his heart, I was punished right after I entered the wind cloud courtyard and was mocked by the other disciples. Now, my chance has finally come. At the end of the month, I must be the winner of the Array Dao test and wipe away my shame. Chapter 144. After Han Qiuxing announced this month's mission, he left the hall with Du Wu. The disciples discussed in the main hall for a while before leaving one after another. After Ji Tianqing left the hall, he left the wind cloud courtyard and headed towards the Great Peace Palace. Even though the one-month deadline was over, he had been fortunate enough to receive Xiang Wuji's pointers to take first place in the pill refining exam. No matter what, he had to go to the Great Peace Palace and thank Xiang Wuji in person. An hour later, he arrived at the gates of the Great Peace Palace. The mute sword slave saw him come and nodded to him, squeezing out a faint smile. Ji Tianqing returned the greeting and quickly entered the third yard of the Great Peace Palace. Xiang Wuji had recently cultivated another nursery, planting over 10 blue soul grass and other spirit herbs. He was holding a white jade water bottle, watering the herbs in the nursery. He was even humming a little tune, seeming to be in a good mood. Hearing Ji Tianqing's footsteps, he continued to water without turning his head. He said in a mocking tone, You bastard brat. You haven't come to the Great Peace Palace in 3 days. Why have you come today? This old man thought you were too scared to come and didn't want to sweep the floor for this old man. Ji Tianqing walked to his side and respectfully bowed. He said with a faint smile, Elder, this junior was fortunate enough to receive your pointers in pill refining and took first place in the month-end exam 3 days ago. In these 3 days, this junior has been in closed-door cultivation, so I haven't been able to come visit Elder. Today, I've come to thank Elder in person. Xiang Wuji raised an eyebrow and a mocking smile appeared on his lips. You still know to thank this old man. Brat, you still have some conscience. However, is your so-called thanks just lip service? Could it be that you, brat, shouldn't show some appreciation? Appreciation? Ji Tianqing of course understood his meaning. He was instantly troubled and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Senior, I don't have anything valuable on me. There's nothing that can catch your eye. Ah, pay. Xiang Wuji glared at him and scolded with a smile. What kind of person do you think this old man is? What kind of world has this old man not seen? Why would I ask a junior like you for a gift? Pausing for a moment, he put on a look of exasperation and said with a straight face, Since you're a blockhead who doesn't understand, then this old man will say it clearly. If you want to thank this old man, you have to take action. From today onwards, you are this old man's servant. You will be responsible for cleaning this Great Peace Palace. Ji Tianqing froze for a moment, depressed like a bitter gourd. A boy who sweeps the floor? This is too. Senior, why don't I sweep the floor for you for another month? Xiang Wuji curled his lips and laughed sinisterly. You don't like the sound of sweeping the floor? All right, you can be a servant of Great Peace Palace. Handyman? Ji Tianqing waved his hand and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then I'll just be a boy. Anyway, I can see that you're determined to stick to me. Xiang Wuji snorted in exasperation. Humph. Don't pretend to be obedient after taking advantage. So many disciples are crying and begging to come to Great Peace Palace to sweep the floor. This old man isn't willing. You are now a boy of Great Peace Palace. If you go out, many disciples will be jealous of you. Ji Tianqing was suspicious of his words and muttered in a small voice. If that's the case, then why isn't there a single boy in Great Peace Palace? No one has cleaned it for many years. Weeds are growing everywhere. Xiang Wuji choked and said angrily, What do you know, boy? This old man's Great Peace Palace has the Blue Spirit Great Formation. Those weeds will benefit and grow to the height of a person in 10 days. Ji Tianqing knew that the old man was bragging, but he did not expose him. Otherwise, if he forced the old man into a corner, the one who would be unlucky in the end would be him. Seeing the other not speak, Xiang Wuji's anger subsided. He put away the white jade kettle and turned to walk into the hall. Boy, come with this old man. Ji Tianqing did not know what he wanted to do, so he could only follow him into the hall. There was a sandalwood table in the hall that was filled with all kinds of spirit fruits and pills. Qian Yu and the little black dragon were lying on the table, slowly eating spirit fruits and pills. They looked very satisfied. Seeing Ji Tianqing come, Qian Yu's figure flashed and flew to his shoulder. It said excitedly, Old Ji, you're fine? That's great. The little black dragon hurriedly swallowed the spirit fruit in its mouth and flew in front of him to greet him. "Old Ji, it's good that you're fine." Ji Tianxing could see that the two of them had become much stronger and their mental states were very good. He could not help but smile and ask, "How did you know something happened to me?" Qian Yu raised its little head and said proudly, "I'm the most well-informed. Nothing can be hidden from me." Ji Tianxing stretched out a finger and flicked its little head. He said exasperatedly, "Then why didn't you come to see me when I was imprisoned in the Black Wind Cave? Why didn't you bring me anything to eat? You two heartless fellows. You were enjoying yourselves in the Grand Peace Palace, but you watched me suffer in the Black Wind Cave." The little black dragon immediately stopped talking. With a whoosh, it turned back into the black dragon sword and returned to its scabbard hanging on the wall. Qian Yu rolled its eyes and immediately pointed at Xiang Wuji. "Old Ji, it's not that I didn't want to see you. It's that old man who won't let us leave the Grand Peace Palace." Of course, Ji Tianxing did not dare to cause trouble for Xiang Wuji. He could only end this topic. Xiang Wuji reached out and grabbed the black dragon sword hanging on the wall. He also picked up Qian Yu's tail and handed them over to Ji Tianxing. "Brat, your two pets are both gluttons. Last month, they ate more than 1,000 spirit fruits and pills from this old man. Hurry up and take them away. This old man will not keep them." Ji Tianxing was stunned. He thought to himself, "This stinky old man is noble and powerful. Who knows how many rare treasures he has? How can he not be able to raise Qian Yu and the little black dragon? Is he just looking for an excuse to return Qian Yu and the little black dragon to me? But Qian Yu and the little black dragon are with me. I don't have that many spirit fruits for them to eat. It's better to let them stay in the Grand Peace Palace. At least they can quickly recover their strength." At this thought, he pretended to be confused and asked, "Senior, is this appropriate? Qian Yu and the little black dragon are with me. If other people in the sect find out, I will be breaking the sect rules and will be punished. The two of them will also be expelled from the sect." Xiang Wuji glared at him and scolded, "Brat, don't play dumb with me. Don't you just want to leave them here and borrow my treasures to help them recover their strength? Hurry up and take them away. You are a member of the Grand Peace Palace. With this old man protecting you, no one in the sect will dare to cause trouble for you." Ji Tianxing blinked his eyes and thought to himself, "Why did that stinky old man suddenly become my backer?" Chapter 145. Ji Tianxing took the black dragon sword and Qian Yu and put them into the 100 treasures pouch. Of course, he also put the dozens of spiritual fruits and dawn left on the table into the pouch. Xiang Wuji saw him do this and frowned, but he didn't say anything. He sat on the chair and drank a few mouthfuls of wine. He asked casually, "Kid, what is the Feng Yun Yard learning this month?" Ji Tianxing answered honestly, "This month, Deacon Han is teaching us a raise. At the end of the month, there will be a test." "A raise?" Xiang Wuji was startled and a strange look flashed across his eyes. He drank from the gourd and thought to himself, Qiu Yu's disciple was the most talented array genius in the house. No one in the entire Tianjin region can compare to him. Ji Tianxing, if this kid is really the descendant of Qiu Yu's disciple, he should be able to inherit some of Qiu Yu's array talents? Thinking about this, Xiang Wuji put down the gourd and asked Ji Tianxing slowly, "Kid, you must be a rich young master in the mortal world, right? What does your family do?" Ji Tianxing didn't know why he would ask this, but he still answered truthfully, "Senior, this junior's family is proficient in forging tools, and this is our profession." "Making weapons?" Xiang Wuji frowned and muttered to himself, "I thought it was a family of arrays. I didn't think it was making weapons." However, making weapons is also related to arrays. With Qiu Yu's array talents, even if he makes weapons, he will be able to create a great family business. He paused for a moment, then asked Ji Tianxing, "Kid, have you seen your great-grandmother?" Ji Tianxing shook his head and said calmly, "Only my father and uncles are still alive. My grandfather passed away a long time ago. I have never seen my great-grandmother." Xiang Wuji nodded and didn't ask more. He frowned and fell into deep thought. "Back then, my disciple Qiu Yu's talent in array Dao stunned the entire Tianjin region. She was my greatest pride. This brat is the descendant of Qiu Yu's disciple. This old man will teach him well and definitely won't let him lose face for Qiu Yu's disciple." After making up his mind, Xiang Wuji got up and walked out of the door. He walked to the center of the courtyard and stood still on the ground paved with bluestone. He waved at Ji Tianxing. "Brat, come here." Ji Tianxing didn't know what was going on, so he hurriedly walked into the courtyard and stood in front of him. Xiang Wuji pointed at the limestone floor beneath his feet and asked with a serious expression, "Observe the ground carefully and tell this old man what you see." Ji Tianxing looked down at the ground under his feet and observed carefully. The bluestone floor was about 6 meters in radius. At first glance, it looked ordinary. However, after taking a closer look, he noticed that the bluestone slabs were of different sizes and were arranged in different orders and directions. The gaps between the slabs were like lines. They seemed to contain some kind of pattern and formed a strange pattern. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment. He suddenly looked up at Xiang Wuji and said with certainty, "Elder, if I am not wrong, this should be an array." Xiang Wuji nodded and said calmly, "Not bad. You have some eyesight. You can see that this is an array." However, he thought to himself, disciples with ordinary talent in array Dao can only see patterns. Only those with great talent can see that this is an array. It seems that this brat has some talent in array Dao. This old man will observe more. He looked at Ji Tianxing calmly and asked, "Normally, there are 4 types of arrays: illusion arrays, trap arrays, killing arrays and support arrays. Take a closer look. What type of formation is this? If you are not sure, this old man will allow you to use vital energy to investigate." Ji Tianxing nodded and continued to observe the array beneath his feet. He had already learned the basics of array Dao. Of course, he knew that there were 4 types of arrays. Illusion arrays, trap arrays and killing arrays were needless to say. As for support arrays, they were usually used to aid in cultivation or to nurture medicinal ingredients. For example, the secret room in his room had an energy-gathering array. It was used to gather the energy of heaven and earth to aid in cultivation. This was a support array. After a moment of careful observation, Ji Tianxing had a preliminary answer. He guessed that the array beneath his feet was a support array. However, he did not dare to answer rashly. He pressed his palms against the bluestone slabs on the ground and released his vital energy to further investigate the array. His vital energy surged into the bluestone slabs and he quickly found that the ground was warm and moist. There was a vast amount of qi of the green wood. After thinking for a while, he said to Xiang Wuji with certainty, "Elder, from what I see, this array is a support array. It should be used to nurture medicinal ingredients." Xiang Wuji smiled and nodded, "That's right, you're right. This wood spiritual array is indeed used to cultivate medicinal herbs. Since you have some talent in array Dao, then I will test you today." Then he waved his hand and shot out a dark green vital energy beam that surged into the bluestone slabs. The bluestone slabs lit up with green light. The cracks on the bluestone slabs also turned into green lines that emitted a mysterious power. In the blink of an eye, a dark green light barrier appeared. This light barrier was like an inverted bowl that enveloped Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing looked around and found that the scenery around him had changed. The yard had disappeared. He was actually in a dense and lush forest with a radius of 1,000 meters. Below his feet was soft green grass and all around him were towering trees. He could not see the end of the forest. He could not see the situation outside the forest. He could only look up and see a dark green wall of light above his head. It was obvious that Xiang Wuji had activated the wood spiritual array and trapped him inside. Just as he was looking around, Xiang Wuji appeared beside him. He stroked his white beard and said with a smile, "Kid, you are now inside the wood spiritual array. If you can break the array and walk out of it, then come see me in the main hall. I will reward you. Otherwise, you can stay here forever and help this old man with the fields and weeds." After that, Xiang Wuji laughed evilly and disappeared into thin air. After he left the wood spiritual array, he walked back to the main hall with his hands behind his back. He lay down on a rattan chair and drank wine leisurely while humming a tune. In the quiet courtyard, there was only a green light shield with a radius of 6 meters. It was the wood spiritual array. From the outside, it looked like the array was only 6 meters wide. Actually, there was another world inside the array. It was very mysterious. Xiang Wuji lifted his wine gourd and drank 2 mouthfuls. Glancing at the green light shield in the yard, he murmured with a smile, Although this wood spiritual array of mine is only a mystic level middle grade array, only mystic realm warriors can successfully break it. If you can break it in a day, then you have inherited Xueqi's talent in arrays. I will teach you everything I know. Otherwise, you wouldn't be worth this old man's time. Today, the 6th chapter has arrived. From now on, there will be 6 chapters every day. I hope you can add this book to your bookshelf and vote for it. Thank you. Chapter 146. Ji Tianxing stood in the dense forest and did not act rashly. Although this wood spiritual array was very mysterious, and it was unbelievable that there was a space of 1,000 meters in a small array. But he was sure that the grass under his feet and the towering trees around him were all real and not illusions. Being in this array, he could feel that the air was filled with thick wood spiritual qi, emitting the fragrance of plants. Without a doubt, this was a holy place for recuperation and healing. If a seriously injured person were to heal here, their injuries would recover faster. If a martial artist with wood spiritual qi were to cultivate here, he would get twice the result with half the effort and his strength would increase quickly. Ji Tianxing stood in the center of the array and carefully observed for a while. Then he decided to try to break through the array. Although arrays are the means of martial artists, they also need to borrow the power of heaven and earth and follow the principles of yin and yang and the 5 elements. Since the array has an entrance, there must be an exit. I'll go through this forest and walk to the edge of the array to see if I can find the exit. After making up his mind, he began to walk forward. As long as he passed through the dense forest that was 1,000 meters long, he would reach the edge of the wood spiritual array. Ji Tianxing stepped on the soft grass, pushed aside the dense leaves in front of him, and walked straight forward. However, after he took a few steps, the grass and forest behind him changed silently. The grass and towering trees were like living creatures that could move and change their positions on their own. Unfortunately, these changes were too subtle and silent. Ji Tianxing did not notice them. After 15 minutes, he quickly passed through the forest and walked 1,000 meters. Logically speaking, he should have passed through the forest and reached the edge of the array. But this was not the case. He saw that the scene in front of him had not changed at all. It was still the dense forest, and he could not see the end. He was still surrounded by the dense forest, and he was still on the grass in the center of the array, as if he had never left. Ji Tianxing had to stop, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Haha, so it's not just an auxiliary array, but also a maze. This forest is like a maze. If I continue to walk like this, I'm afraid I'll never be able to get out. Looks like I have to think of another way to break it. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he took out Qian Yu and Black Dragon Sword from his 100 treasures brocade pouch. Qian Yu was sleeping in the brocade pouch. When he was pulled out by Ji Tianxing, he grumbled with some dissatisfaction. "Old Ji, next time you come looking for me, let me know first. Isn't it rude of you to drag me out like this?" Ji Tianxing just smiled and didn't tease it. "I'm in the old man's wood spirit formation. This is his test for me. I have to break the formation as soon as possible. Qian Yu, I need your help." When Qian Yu heard that the old man was testing him, he immediately became interested. "Tell me, how can I help you?" Ji Tianxing pointed at the dark blue sky above his head. "Fly to the highest point in the sky and watch for me from there. This forest with a radius of 1,000 meters is a maze. Help me keep an eye on the changes in the forest. Pay attention and observe carefully." Qian Yu immediately understood what he meant. He nodded and flew high up in the sky, overlooking the entire forest from above. After looking around for a moment, he shouted, "Okay, old Ji, I can clearly observe the whole formation. You can start now." Hearing Qian Yu's voice, Ji Tianxing carried the Black Dragon Sword and continued to move deeper into the forest. But this time, when he passed through the forest, every time he passed a towering tree, he would use the Black Dragon Sword to carve a mark on the tree. Soon, a quarter of an hour passed. Ji Tianxing continued to walk for more than 1,000 meters, but he was still trapped in the center of the formation. He was still trapped in the maze and couldn't get out. Even the marks he made on the trees with his sword had mysteriously disappeared. Ji Tianxing had to stop. He waved to Qian Yu in the sky and motioned for it to come down. Qian Yu flew back in front of him. Before he could ask, it pouted and said, "That stinky old man is too insidious. The formation he set up is a bit strange. Old Ji, I can see very clearly from the sky. When you walk, the entire forest is constantly changing positions and moving. Although you keep walking, you are always going in circles within 100 meters. If this continues, you won't be able to get out even if you walk for another year. Hearing Chen Yu's words, Ji Tianqing didn't feel depressed. Instead, he smiled. Haha, as expected, it's just as I expected. By the way, Chen Yu, you've been observing from the sky for so long. Did you see it carefully? Chen Yu nodded and said, of course. Didn't I tell you? My 5 senses are very strong. My vision can reach dozens of miles. The corners of Ji Tianqing's mouth curled up into a smile as he asked, then tell me, if the entire forest is moving and changing, what is there that remains unchanged? Something that hasn't changed? Chen Yu suddenly frowned, her big eyes rolling a few times as she carefully tried to recall. After a while, it suddenly thought of something and said, I remember now. It's a small stream. That stream is hidden in the forest. No one can find it except for me. It's about 150 meters southeast of you. In the last 15 minutes, no matter how the entire forest changed, the stream was always there. It didn't move or change. Great. Ji Tianqing revealed a joyful expression and said with a smile, it seems that the key to breaking the formation lies in that small stream. Chen Yu, I'll have to trouble you again. You have to help me find that stream. Okay. Chen Yu agreed. It quickly flew up into the sky and looked down at the entire forest. Ji Tianqing lifted his feet and walked towards the southeast, his heart full of anticipation. After he took 10 steps, Chen Yu quickly reminded him, Old Ji, you're off course. 9 more steps to the south. Ji Tianqing smiled faintly and walked south according to its instructions. After dozens of steps, Chen Yu reminded him again, Old Ji, you're off course again. 10 more steps to the east. With the help of Chen Yu, Ji Tianqing walked over 1,000 steps and finally arrived at the stream. The stream was only 1 meter wide. It was hidden in the dense forest and grass. If one didn't walk close enough, they wouldn't be able to find it. The stream was cold and clear. No one knew where it came from or where it flowed to. Ji Tianqing followed the stream to the source and whispered, this is a wood spiritual array. It gathers the wood spiritual qi to cultivate the old man's herbs. Although the array is full of spiritual qi, the forest and grass need not only spiritual qi but also water to grow. The array won't produce water out of thin air, so the water in this stream must have flowed in from outside the array. As long as I reach the source of the stream, I'll be able to find the exit. About a quarter of an hour later, Ji Tianqing followed the stream to the edge of the array. In front of him was a clear pool of water. This was where the stream flowed out from. Ji Tianqing put away Chen Yu and the black dragon sword into his 100 treasures pouch and jumped into the pool without hesitation. Just as he expected, after he passed through a passage at the bottom of the pool, he swam into an ancient well. Splash! Ji Tianqing floated to the surface of the water. He raised his head and looked up. As expected, he saw the blue sky outside the well. Immediately, a gratified smile appeared on his face. As expected. Hee, I broke the wood spiritual array in just 2 hours. The smelly old man definitely didn't expect this, right? Chapter 147. Xiang Wuji was in the main hall, lying on a rattan chair, leisurely drinking wine. Probably because he drank a little too much, his old face was flushed red and his eyes were tightly shut. He looked like he was about to fall asleep. Anyway, that kid needs at least half a day to break the array. This old man will sleep for a while. Xiang Wuji smacked his lips, put the wine gourd into his black thumb ring, and closed his eyes to rest. After a while, he started snoring and fell asleep. At this time, 2 hands reached out from the well in the corner of the yard and climbed out. It was Ji Tianqing. His hair and green robe were wet, and water kept dripping down to his feet. It was noon, and the sun was blazing in the sky, and the air was hot. Ji Tianqing wrung the water off his robe and sleeves, and walked straight to the main hall. Before he entered, he heard snoring coming from the room. Hee, the old man is actually asleep? Is he pretending to be asleep? Is he trying to trick me? Ji Tianqing grinned silently, and tiptoed into the room. He quietly walked to Xiang Wuji's side, wanting to see if Xiang Wuji was really asleep or just pretending. When he was 5 steps away from Xiang Wuji suddenly opened his eyes, and subconsciously waved his hand, sending out a ray of sword light towards Ji Tianqing. The ray of sword light was over 1 meter long, and was extremely sharp and violent. It could even cut through a city wall with one slash. Ji Tianqing's expression changed drastically, and he broke out in cold sweat. He immediately used the shadowless steps, and retreated 3 meters away. Even so, the ray of sword light was too fast, and had already reached his ear. Luckily, Xiang Wuji had already woken up. After realizing that something was wrong, he stopped in time. That sharp and fierce sword light was hovering right next to Ji Tianqing's ear, only 2 inches away from his neck. If Xiang Wuji had stopped a second later, his head would have been separated from his body, and he would have died on the spot. Hiss! Ji Tianqing was still in shock, and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He said angrily, "Old man, what are you doing?" "Old man, you don't have to be so cruel to me. You almost chopped my head off." Xiang Wuji moved his finger, and quickly retracted the ray of sword light. Only then did he wake up, and he turned to Ji Tianqing. "Kid, why are you out? What time is it? How long have I been asleep?" Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "It's half of the afternoon." Xiang Wuji immediately stood up with a face full of surprise. He frowned and looked at the sky outside. "I just fell asleep for a while, and you've already come out of the wood spirit formation? This is impossible. It's only been 2 hours since you entered the formation. How could you break the formation in 2 hours?" Xiang Wuji couldn't believe that someone could break the wood spirit array in 2 hours. In the past 100 years, other than Qiu disciple, no one else could do it. Now, Ji Tianqing did it. How could he not be shocked? Could it be that this kid's array talent is as outstanding as Qiu's disciple? He completely inherited Qiu's talent? Thinking about this, Xiang Wuji's blood boiled, and he was very excited. The way he looked at Ji Tianqing was also filled with excitement and anticipation, as if he had seen a perfect piece of jade. He believed that this perfect piece of jade, after being polished by him, would become a rare treasure. After a while, Xiang Wuji calmed down. He stared at Ji Tianqing and asked seriously, "Kid, tell me, how did you break through the array?" Ji Tianqing didn't hide it, and answered honestly, "Your array may be a supporting array, but it has the effect of an illusion array. The forest inside is a maze, and if you don't break it, you can't get out. I found a way to find a small stream and guessed that it was the base of the array. I found the source of the stream and climbed out of the well." Xiang Wuji nodded as he listened, and a rare smile appeared on his old face. Not bad, not bad. Your way of thinking is correct. Ehem. I said before that I would reward you. Now, I will fulfill my promise." Hearing that there was a reward, Ji Tianqing's anger dissipated. He asked with anticipation, "What reward are you going to give me?" Xiang Wuji looked at him solemnly and said in a serious tone, "This old man has decided to teach you array Dao techniques and nurture you into an array Dao grandmaster." Then, he looked at Ji Tianqing with a smug expression. In his opinion, any disciple who heard these words would be so excited that they would tremble. However, what he expected did not happen. Ji Tianqing stilled and then bowed. "Many thanks for Elder's guidance. Junior is very grateful." Actually, he was muttering inside, I thought that this old man would reward me with some spiritual dan to help me increase my strength." Xiang Wuji's smile disappeared. He asked with a frown, "Stinking brat, what's with your expression? Aren't you excited? I am going to teach you arrays. That is a blessing that other people can only envy. Are you really not excited at all?" Seeing this, Ji Tianqing could only squeeze out a smile. Junior is grateful to Elder for his kindness. I will never forget it. Humph. What a hypocrite. Of course, Xiang Wuji could tell that he was lying and scolded him. "No matter if you are happy or not, I will teach you. In the future, you will stay in Great Peace Palace and don't need to return to Wind Cloud Yard." Ji Tianqing finally remembered that Xiang Wuji's status was very high. If he really wanted to ask Wind Cloud Yard for him, Han Qiaoxing would not dare to refuse. Thinking of this, he hurriedly complimented Xiang Wuji and flattered him a bit. Only then did Xiang Wuji's anger dissipate. Xiang Wuji thought of the previous matter and warned with a serious expression, "Brat, in the future, don't sneak around in Great Peace Palace. Otherwise, if I don't stop one day, you will die an unjust death." Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a face full of agreement, "There is a saying in the mortal kingdoms, accompanying a ruler is like accompanying a tiger. I feel the same way now." Xiang Wuji glared at him and scolded, "What do you know? I am always on guard. Even when I am asleep, I am always on guard. I have roamed the continent for 200 years. I have traveled through dozens of regions and encountered countless dangers. If I had not been careful, do you think I would have been able to survive until now? Ji Tianqing came to a realization and said sincerely, Senior, it seems like you're a powerhouse with a story. When are you going to tell me about your adventures in the world? Xiang Wuji nodded proudly and said, Of course. As for telling stories, we will talk about it when we have time. Right now, come with me to the study. I will teach you arrays. Chapter 148. Ji Tianqing followed Xiang Wuji into the study and listened attentively to the teachings of formations. From noon to late at night, for 12 hours, he listened intently to Xiang Wuji's teachings. Even though Xiang Wuji said he was going to teach him formations. But formations were not like martial arts that could be taught directly and make someone become a powerful cultivator overnight. The so-called array path absolute art was actually a combination of array path knowledge and experience. It was not something that could be taught in a day or two. Xiang Wuji was not only skilled in martial arts, he was also skilled in alchemy and formations. In his own words, he was an all-round cultivator and ranked in the top 3 in the entire Tianjin zone. Even with Ji Tianqing's talent, it would take him at least 10 years to learn all the formations he had learned in his life. Therefore, Xiang Wuji followed the principle of gradual improvement and taught Ji Tianqing the basics of formations and experience. Since Ji Tianqing already had a foundation in formations, he skipped over the primary level formations and started with the Xian level formations. Ji Tianqing didn't just have a foundation in formations. His talent in formations was not bad. When he listened to Xiang Wuji's teachings, he understood immediately and learned immediately. He could also infer many things from one example. In this way, his 12 hours of study was equivalent to 3 to 5 days of study for an ordinary disciple. This made Xiang Wuji very satisfied and he found him more and more pleasing to the eye. In the middle of the night, Xiang Wuji went back to his room to rest and stopped teaching. Kid, it's too late. You don't need to go back to the Feng Yun Yard tonight. Stay in the Greaton Palace. Ji Tianqing nodded to show he understood. But after thinking he asked, Elder, which room should I sleep in? Sleep. Xiang Wuji frowned and scolded. You are so young. You don't work hard and you want to sleep? Look at those lazy people who love to sleep. Which one of them can become a powerful cultivator? They don't have talent and don't work hard. How can they become strong? Ji Tianqing was reprimanded by him. He lowered his head and whispered, Don't you like to sleep all day? Xiang Wuji glared at him and scolded, You stinking brat. Originally, this old man wanted to let you rest in the pill room, but now, this old man has changed his mind. Scram to the woodshed for this old man and meditate to cultivate. After saying this, Xiang Wuji flung his sleeves and left in a huff. Ji Tianqing rubbed his nose regretfully and murmured with a wry smile, If I had known that the old man was hot-tempered, why would I have talked back to him? Aren't you just asking for trouble? With a sigh, he walked to the woodshed with a helpless expression and sat in a corner to cultivate. The next day, Ji Tianqing finished his cultivation early in the morning and went to the well to draw water to wash his face. He just finished washing up when the mute sword servant quickly walked into the courtyard and arrived by his side. Although the sword servant couldn't speak, he made a few hand gestures to him. After half a month of interaction, Ji Tianqing was already familiar with the sword servant and could understand his hand gestures. It turned out that a female disciple had come to the Greaton Palace to look for him and was waiting outside the gate. Ji Tianqing thanked the sword servant and hurriedly walked to the gate of the Greaton Palace. As he walked, he wondered which female disciple would come to the Greaton Palace to look for him early in the morning. I only know 2 or 3 female disciples in the sect. Who could it be? Kuka's injuries haven't recovered yet, so it shouldn't be her. If Xian came to look for me, she would have come in directly and wouldn't wait for me at the gate. After a while, Ji Tianqing walked to the gate. When he was still 100 steps away, he saw a beautiful woman in a long white dress standing outside the gate. She had a graceful figure and was extremely beautiful. Without a doubt, that beautiful woman in white was Yun Yao. Not far behind Yun Yao, her white spirit crane was still standing tall and upright. Ji Tianqing quickly walked to Yun Yao's side and greeted her with a smile. Eldest senior sister, why are you looking for me so early in the morning? What's the matter? Yun Yao's expression was a little serious. She nodded at him and went straight to the point. Junior brother Tianqing, Master has given me an important task today. I need your help. You need my help. Ji Tianqing frowned and asked doubtfully. Eldest senior sister, it's not that I'm looking down on myself, but with my strength, I'm afraid it's very difficult to help you, right? Yun Yao said calmly. This has nothing to do with your strength. I'll tell you the details later. Go and pack your things. You'll leave the sect with me later. This task might take a few days. Ji Tianqing saw her serious expression and guessed that the task was difficult. He nodded and said, Okay, wait for me here for a while. I'll be back soon. In fact, all of his belongings were in the 100 treasures brocade pouch. There was nothing to pack. He returned to the Graydon Palace again and only reported to Xiang Wuji, in case Xiang Wuji couldn't find him for a few days and got angry again. After a while, he returned to the gate and jumped onto the back of the spirit crane with Yun Yao. The spirit crane let out a clear cry and flapped its wings to fly out of the sect. After leaving the Sky Pillar sect, the spirit crane flew over a large mountain and landed on a grassland 15 miles away from the Sky Pillar sect. Seeing this familiar grassland, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and thought to himself, a few days ago, I killed Jiling here. Why did eldest senior sister bring me here? Seeing Yun Yao jump onto the grass, he quickly jumped down as well. He looked around and found a male disciple in a white robe standing in the forest not far away. He was leading a huge silver wolf. He followed Yun Yao into the forest and saw that the male disciple was Bai Wuchen. When Bai Wuchen saw the two of them arrive, he quickly went up to them and said to Yun Yao, Eldest senior sister, I've borrowed the mysterious treasure pagoda from the second elder. With that, he stretched out his right hand. A golden light flashed in his palm, and a small and exquisite golden pagoda that was about 3 inches tall appeared. Yun Yao nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, There's no time to lose. Let's start the search now. Ji Tianqing was a little puzzled and quickly asked Yun Yao, Eldest senior sister, what are we searching for? Yun Yao explained with a serious expression, For days ago, Ji Ling's body disappeared. Sect Master used the star map to find out that it was the demons who took his body. Ji Tianqing's body trembled. From her words, he understood a lot of information. Only now did he know that the Sky Pillar sect master had long known about him killing Ji Ling, and had even tacitly approved of it. Moreover, on the day he killed Ji Ling's body was taken away by the demons. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask, Ji Ling is already dead. Why do the demons want his body? Yun Yao said in a serious tone, The demon powerhouses have the blood demon secret technique. Even if Ji Ling is dead, they can still extract his soul. Ji Ling once entered the sect's forbidden area and knew the sect's core secrets. If the demon powerhouses interrogate his soul and find out the sect's secrets, it will be troublesome. Therefore, the mission that Sect Master gave us is to find Ji Ling's soul no matter what. Chapter 149. Ever since Ji Tianqing killed Ji Ling, he had put this matter aside. A person's death was like an extinguished lamp. With Ji Ling dead, he thought this matter was over. But after listening to Yun Yao's explanation, he realized that this matter was not over. It even left behind a huge hidden danger. At the same time, he felt a deep sense of fear towards the strange and mysterious demon race. She's already dead, but they can still extract her soul to interrogate her for secrets? The demon race actually has such an evil secret technique? It's unbelievable. Ji Tianqing muttered with a grave expression. Then he asked Yun Yao, Eldest senior sister, how do we find the whereabouts of Ji Ling's soul? Without waiting for Yun Yao to explain, Bai Wuchen answered, Second Elder's mysterious pagoda is an incomparably mysterious treasure. It can use blood as a guide to find the whereabouts of Ji Ling's corpse. He looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze and said in a low voice, Didn't Ji Ling steal your bloodline? Your bloodline flows in her body, so there's a connection between you and her. Later, I'll activate the mysterious pagoda's array formation. I'll need a drop of your blood as a guide to help the mysterious pagoda search for Ji Ling's whereabouts. Ji Tianqing immediately understood. He nodded and thought to himself, No wonder eldest senior sister needs my help. This matter has nothing to do with strength. So they just need my blood. He thought for a moment and said to Yun Yao, Eldest senior sister, since you only need my blood as a guide, then it's easy. I'll give you a drop of my blood. Then you can go and carry out the mission. I won't be going with you. I still have to go back and cultivate. Last month, the Wind Cloud Courtyard wanted to take the alchemy test. In the end, he was framed by Ji Ling and was locked in the Dark Wind Cave for more than 10 days, delaying his alchemy. If Xiang Wuji hadn't taught him alchemy, he definitely wouldn't have passed the test and would have been punished. This month, the Wind Cloud Courtyard wanted to take the array formation test again. He didn't want to waste any more time and affect his cultivation. Previously, he was lucky enough to pass the alchemy test and even take first place. But he knew very well that a person couldn't always have good luck. If he did not study formations diligently, it was very likely that he would rank last in this month's formation test. Before Yun Yao could say anything, Bai Wuchen gave her a contemptuous look. I say, Junior Martial Brother Tianqing, you're not afraid of the ferocity of the demon race, so you're deliberately looking for an excuse to evade, right? Ji Tianqing glanced at him expressionlessly and said indifferently, Senior Brother Bai, don't measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Bai Wuchen's face darkened, and he shouted, Ji Tianqing, who are you calling a villain? He didn't like Ji Tianqing to begin with. It was a rare opportunity for him to insult Ji Tianqing in front of Yun Yao. Of course, he wouldn't miss it. He didn't expect that Ji Tianqing would be so bold as to mock him, an elite genius. How could he not be angry? At this moment, Yun Yao frowned slightly and took a step forward to stand between the two of them. She looked at Ji Tianqing calmly and said sincerely, Junior Martial Brother Tianqing, there's something you don't know. Although the Xianji Pagoda can use your blood as a guide to find traces of Ji Ling's corpse, it can only be located at a certain distance. If it's too far away, the Xianji Pagoda can only point out the direction, but not the exact location. We still need your help in this operation. Come with us. After listening to Yun Yao's explanation, Ji Tianqing finally understood the reason. To be fair, Yun Yao had always treated him well. Since Yun Yao asked for his help, how could he refuse? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and nodded in agreement. If that's the case, I'll go with you. Thank you, Junior Martial Brother Tianqing. Yun Yao nodded slightly and thanked him. Ji Tianqing glanced at Bai Wuchen. Seeing that he was still angry, Ji Tianqing said in a playful tone, Eldest senior sister is very powerful. My essence blood can find traces of Ji Ling's corpse. We are all indispensable to this mission. I'd like to know, Senior Martial Brother Bai, why do you want to go with us? Bai Wuchen had insulted him just now. Of course, he wouldn't take it lying down. He had to return the favor. As expected, Bai Wuchen felt that his dignity was being challenged. He glared at Ji Tianqing angrily. Ji Tianqing, I'm proficient in formations and I can control the Xianji Pagoda. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said mockingly, Oh? Eldest senior martial sister, are you not proficient in formations and can't control the Xianji Pagoda? Yun Yao was the #1 genius in the Tianquan region. Not only was she extremely talented in martial arts, but she was also proficient in formations and alchemy. Naturally, she could control the Xianji Pagoda. Bai Wuchen's face turned green. He clenched his fists in anger. He wanted to beat Ji Tianqing up. Seeing this, Yun Yao had to mediate the situation again. Junior Martial Brother Tianqing, Master asked Junior Martial Brother Bai to help me. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything else. He didn't want to put Yun Yao in a difficult position. Bai Wuchen also knew his limits. He didn't want to make things too difficult for Yun Yao. The matter was settled. The three-man team was formed. Although they didn't get along well, Bai Wuchen also took out the Xianji Pagoda. He cleared his mind and activated the formation to activate the pagoda. Then, Ji Tianqing cut his finger with his sword and forced out a drop of blood essence from his heart. He dripped it into the Xianji Pagoda. The Xianji Pagoda, which was emitting a golden light, started to spin rapidly. It released a mysterious and invisible force that surged into the dark sky. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao stared at the Xianji Pagoda, waiting for the results. After about 100 breaths, the Xianji Pagoda's spinning speed slowed down. Finally it stopped. Ji Tianqing could see that one of the 8 corners of the golden pagoda was blood red. It was pointing northwest. Obviously, Ji Ling's body should be northwest of the sky pillar sect. Go northwest. Let's go. Yun Yao immediately gave the order. She jumped onto the spirit crane with Ji Tianqing and flew into the sky. Bai Wuchen also put away the Xianji Pagoda. He rode on the giant silver wolf and rushed northwest at lightning speed. On the way, he looked up at the spirit crane in the sky. On the back of the spirit crane, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao stood side by side. They seemed to be chatting. Seeing this, Bai Wuchen could not help but feel jealous. His face turned cold. Damn Ji Tianqing. A country bumpkin from a small country is getting closer and closer to senior sister. Unfortunately, the sect leader seems to be secretly watching this kid. Otherwise, how could I let him be so close to senior sister? Bai Wuchen already hated Ji Tianqing when they were still in the royal Azure dynasty. Of course, it was more accurate to say that he was jealous. However, this kind of jealousy was not enough to make him want to kill. He did think of ways to chase Ji Tianqing out of the sect to prevent Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao from getting closer and closer. However, he did not expect that Ji Tianqing would be secretly watched by the sect leader. This caught him off guard and he could not carry out his plan for the time being. He could only pray silently in his heart that there would be a chance to fulfill his wish in this mission. Chapter 150. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing rode on the spirit crane and flew high up in the sky, heading straight for the northwest direction. Ji Tianqing thought of a crucial question. He had some doubts and asked Yun Yao. Eldest senior sister, the devil race took Ji Ling's body. Could they have escaped from the Star Ancient Realm? Yun Yao shook her head and explained. The Star Ancient Realm is an independent space that has always been guarded by our sect. Even the devil race's experts can't enter and leave as they please. In the past 100 years, the devil race's experts have infiltrated our sect several times. Therefore, Master suspects that the devil race has always been hiding in the Star Ancient Realm, waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a serious tone, so that's the case. The Star Ancient Realm is rich in spiritual energy and resources. Since the devil race is hiding in the Star Ancient Realm, they don't lack cultivation resources. Moreover, the Star Ancient Realm is vast. If the devil race is hiding there, it will be extremely difficult to find them. Yun Yao continued. The devil race's headquarters is very far from here. After they took Ji Ling's body, they had to use a secret technique to extract Ji Ling's soul within a few days. After 7 days, Ji Ling's soul will dissipate from the world. Therefore, the devil race must be hiding in the Star Ancient Realm to extract Ji Ling's soul as soon as possible. Because of this, Yun Yao was sure that the devil race was hiding somewhere in the Star Ancient Realm. After listening to her explanation, Ji Tianqing's doubts were dispelled and he didn't ask about it anymore. Very quickly, 2 hours passed. The spirit crane carried Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao for 400 miles and entered a boundless mountain range. Looking down from high up in the sky, one could see towering mountain peaks of different heights closely linked together, and a sea of dark green forests covered the tall mountains. In the mountains and forests, there were many traces of demonic beast activity. From time to time, roars of beasts could be heard from the depths of the mountain range. Ji Tianqing even saw with his own eyes that there was a huge gray eagle circling in the sky above the mountains in the distance. The gray eagle demon beast seemed to have found its prey. It suddenly swooped down from the sky and drilled into the lush mountains. The next moment, the huge gray eagle flew back into the sky with a blood-stained black bear in its mouth. It quickly disappeared into the distance. Ji Tianqing had never seen such a shocking scene before. A vast and boundless aura surged toward him, making him deeply feel the vastness and mysteriousness of the ancient realm of the stars. At this moment, Yun Yao let the spirit crane land on the peak of a mountain. After waiting for a while, Bai Wuchen rode his silver moon wolf to the top of the mountain and stopped in front of them. Junior Bai, use the mysterious pagoda to check again, Yun Yao instructed calmly. Bai Wuchen nodded. He quickly took out the Arcanum Pagoda and activated the pagoda's array. Ji Tianqing also forced out another drop of blood essence and dripped it into the Xueqi Pagoda. The octagonal top of the Xueqi Pagoda spun rapidly, releasing a dazzling golden light with a hint of blood red. Not long after, the top of the octagonal pagoda gradually stopped spinning. One of the corners was blood red. It was still pointing in the northwest direction, but the direction was slightly off from before. Bai Wuchen carefully observed for a moment. He then used a secret technique to sense the aura of the mysterious pagoda. After sensing the specific result, he said to Yun Yao, "Senior sister, we're closer to the target." The mysterious pagoda's reaction is also clearer. According to my judgment, Ji Ling's body should be in the northwest direction. It should be around 600 miles away from us. Yun Yao nodded and said in a low voice, "All right, let's not delay any longer. We'll hurry over." After that, Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing jumped onto the spirit crane's back and continued rushing toward the northwest. Bai Wuchen also rode on his silver moon wolf and rushed down the mountain peak like the wind. They hurried over the mountains and ridges. For the next 4 hours, the three of them did not stop. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing rode on the spirit crane and flew in the sky. Not only was the speed extremely fast, but it was also very safe. Even though the surrounding 800 miles were vast mountains with endless demonic beasts, they did not dare to attack the spirit crane. Bai Wuchen, on the other hand, was unlucky. While riding on his silver moon wolf, he was constantly attacked and chased by groups of demonic beasts. There were a few times when he was surrounded by a group of demonic beasts. He had to fight a bloody battle to break out of the encirclement. However, Bai Wuchen was indeed an elite genius of the Sky Pillar sect. Even though he fought a few times along the way, he was not injured. After 4 hours, Ji Tianqing and the other two also stopped rushing. The spirit crane landed on the peak of a 3,000-meter-tall mountain. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing jumped off the spirit crane's back and stood in the forest on the mountain peak to wait. After a while, Bai Wuchen also rode on his silver moon wolf to the mountain peak and came before the two of them. Bai Wuchen's white robe was already stained with blood. It was a ghastly sight. Of course, this was the blood of demonic beasts. Yun Yao looked at Bai Wuchen and said with a solemn expression, "Junior brother Bai, according to the results of your previous investigation, Jiling's corpse should be around here." Bai Wuchen nodded and took out the mysterious pagoda again. "Eldest senior sister, let me investigate again. This time, I should be able to determine the exact location of the target." After saying that, he activated the formation of the mysterious pagoda and began to investigate. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly. He cut his finger again and forced out a drop of blood essence, dripping it into the mysterious pagoda. The mysterious pagoda spun rapidly, emitting a dazzling golden light. It released an invisible mysterious energy that surged into the dark sky. After a while, the mysterious pagoda pointed out the direction. Bai Wuchen used a mysterious Dao secret technique to sense it and obtain the specific result. He looked ahead with a burning gaze and pointed at a towering dark green mountain peak. He said solemnly, "Eldest senior sister, Jiling's corpse is in that mountain. Also, I used the mysterious pagoda to sense the aura of the demons. There's more than one demon in that mountain. It's very likely that it's a temporary stronghold of the demons." Yun Yao frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, she said, "To avoid alerting the demons, we'll leave the spirit crane and the silver moon wolf here. We'll sneak into that mountain and search." The spirit crane and the silver moon wolf were too big. Moreover, the demons would sense their aura and easily expose their whereabouts. Leaving the two spirit beasts at the peak of the mountain was, of course, the wisest decision. Bai Wuchen had no objections. After that, Yun Yao led Ji Tianqing and Bai Wuchen toward the mountain at lightning speed. The two mountains did not seem far apart, but there was a huge canyon between them that was dozens of miles away. After a full hour, the three of them entered the towering mountain. The three of them shuttled through the dense forest. Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen used their spiritual senses to search for the aura of the demons. Ji Tianqing had not reached the mystic enlightening realm, so he did not have a spiritual sense. However, he was still observing the surroundings with his sharp eyes, hoping to find some clues. After shuttling through the forest for 15 minutes, he sensed a problem. The entire mountain was dead silent. There were no traces of demon beasts, nor were there any roars. This mountain that seemed to be full of vitality and lush with forest seemed to be emitting a cold aura of death. Today's 5th update has arrived. There's another update at 8 p.m. Please recommend it and add it to your collection. Chapter 151. When Ji Tianqing was locked up in the dark wind cave, he had fought with the black-robed woman of the demon clan. He knew how powerful the demon clan was. Therefore, when he was searching for clues in the forest, he was always vigilant and did not dare to let his guard down. Not long after, Bai Wuchen suddenly made a new discovery. He lowered his voice and said to Yun Yao, "Eldest senior sister, according to the Xianji Pagoda's investigation, Jiling's body is very close to us. It's in this mountain." Yun Yao frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. Then she said in a low voice, Master once said that the demon clan is cruel and vicious. They are not tolerated by any race in the world. Therefore, they hide in the depths of the earth to survive until now. If that's the case, it's very likely that the demon clan is hiding in this mountain. Bai Wuchen nodded in agreement. Eldest senior sister, your analysis is very reasonable. We must find a way to enter the mountain. I guess the demon clan is hiding in the cave. Yun Yao lowered her voice and said, Look carefully. See if there's an entrance to the cave. Therefore, the three of them continued to search carefully in the forest, looking for a crack or a cave that could lead them into the mountain. About 2 hours later, the three of them searched around the mountain. Finally, Ji Tianqing found a dark cave in the forest at the foot of the mountain. The cave was about 2 meters wide and was covered by a cluster of extremely lush thorns. If one did not look closely, one would not be able to find it. Moreover, Ji Tianqing could clearly sense that there was a formation at the entrance of the seemingly ordinary cave. He waved at Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen, who were not far away, and the two of them hurried over. After looking around for a while, Bai Wuchen pulled out his sword and slashed all the thorns at the entrance of the cave. The entrance of the cave was clearly exposed in front of the three of them. The light in the cave was dim, so they could not see the depth of the cave. Yun Yao frowned and observed for a while. Then she came to a conclusion. There's a defensive formation at the entrance of the cave. There's a strong aura of the demon clan. It should be one of the entrances to the demon clan's stronghold. Okay, let me try to break the formation. Bai Wuchen put away his sword and walked to the entrance of the cave. He waved his hands and released vital energy to try to break the formation. He spent a quarter of an hour and tried twice, but failed both times. Bai Wuchen was a little embarrassed, so he took out the Xianji Pagoda and used its power to break the formation. The Profound Secrets Treasure Pagoda was indeed miraculous, breaking the defensive array formation at the cave entrance very quickly. Shwa! When the formation collapsed, a black fog flashed before their eyes, and the scene at the entrance of the cave immediately changed. The originally pitch-black and rough cave had turned into an ancient black-brown stone door. This stone gate was 3 meters tall, and its frame was engraved with the characters and strange symbols of the demon race. It faintly exuded the chill of blood and death. After you go in, try to hide your aura as much as possible. Don't fight the demons head-on. Remember, our mission is only to retrieve Ji Ling's soul. Yun Yao instructed with a solemn expression. Then, she pushed open the sturdy and heavy stone door and entered the cave first. Ji Tianqing followed closely behind, while Bai Wuchen walked at the back with his sword in hand. The three of them slowed down, held their breaths, and tried their best to hide their aura. They didn't make a single sound. The cave was a little dark and damp. It meandered underground, and there were traces of man-made excavation on both sides of the cave walls. The three of them walked along the tunnel for about 100 steps, and the tunnel became as dark as ink. There wasn't a single ray of light. However, Yun Yao's strength was extraordinary. Even in such a dark environment, she could see the situation in front of her clearly. Not long after, there were some forks on both sides of the tunnel, and a few narrow passages extended out. Yun Yao ignored those passages and continued to follow the main path, going deeper into the cave. After about an hour, the three of them had walked for a total of 10 miles, and they were already more than 1,000 meters underground. At this moment, they finally reached the end of the tunnel. The three of them entered a huge and spacious cave. They stopped and hid in a dark corner, silently observing the situation in the cave. This cave was at least 100 meters tall and more than 1,000 meters wide. It wouldn't feel crowded even if it accommodated thousands of people. Dozens of gemstones were inlaid on the ceiling of the cave, emitting sparkling light. Although it was a little weak, it could still disperse part of the darkness. There were many huge stone sculptures in the middle of the cave. They weren't in the shape of humans, but of demons and gods with 3 heads and 6 arms. At first glance, those stone sculptures of demons and gods all had green faces and fangs under the dim light. They were very ferocious and terrifying. On the walls of the cave, there were many 3-meter-tall stone doors. Behind the doors should be passages or rooms. Each stone door was dark brown, and the doorframe and lintel were engraved with demon words and symbols. They looked ancient, mysterious, and evil. The cave was dead silent. There was no movement or sound. It was as if it was shrouded in the aura of death, which made people feel depressed. Yun Yao had the celestial spirit's sacred body bloodline, so she was very sensitive to the aura of other races. This kind of cave occupied by demons was filled with the aura of blood and death. It made her instinctively feel disgusted and resistant. The three of them hid in the dark corner for a while. Yun Yao used the power of her sacred body bloodline and sensed for a long time. Finally, she got the result. She looked at the 6 stone doors around the cave and whispered to Ji Tianqing and Bai Wuchen. Among the 6 stone doors, the aura of demons is thicker in the 2 on the left and the 2 in the middle. There are also signs of activity. There might be demons hiding there. Only the 2 stone doors on the right have the aura of demons, but it is fixed. We have to start searching from those 2 doors. Bai Wuchen secretly sensed the Xueqi pagoda and analyzed the result. He nodded in agreement and said, "Senior sister is right. I suggest we start searching from the right." Then, the 3 of them whispered to each other and discussed a simple plan. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing hid in the dark corner and watched for any changes. They supported Bai Wuchen. Bai Wuchen quietly went to the stone door on the far right and silently cracked the array on the door. He had good attainments in array formation. With the help of the Xueqi pagoda, he quickly cracked the defensive array on the stone door. He pushed open the heavy stone door and went into the passage behind it to investigate for a while. Then, he gestured for Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing to follow him. The 3 of them walked to the end of the passage behind the door and saw a spacious hall. There were piles of bones in the dark hall. Thousands of grayish-white bones were piled up into a small hill. Most of the bones had been stored for many years. They had long rotted and become a pile of bones. At the edge of the white bone hill, there was a relatively intact corpse that had not completely rotted yet, although the corpse was broken and emitted a strong stench. However, Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and the other 2 immediately recognized him. That corpse was Jiling's? 6th update. Please join the bookshelf and vote a few recommendation votes. Thank you everyone. Chapter 152. A few days ago, when Jiling was still alive, he looked like a refined and handsome young man. But who would have thought that a few days later, he would become a rotting corpse wrapped in rags? No one could look at him directly. Not only that, but his corpse was also thrown into the White Bone Mountain by the demons. After a few years, he would also decay like the other skeletons and become a pile of gray bones. Yun Yao frowned. She couldn't stand the pungent smell in the hall. She quickly held her breath and didn't dare to speak. Seeing this, Bai Wuchen naturally had to muster up his courage and step forward. He resisted the urge to vomit and walked to Jiling's corpse. He turned his head away, not daring to look at Jiling's corpse. He slowly stretched out his trembling hand and pressed it on Jiling's head. He used a secret technique to examine Jiling's soul. During this time, he also held his breath and didn't dare to inhale. His face was pale. When he got the results of his investigation, he finally showed a relieved expression and quickly ran away from Jiling's body. He rushed back to Yun Yao and didn't dare to speak. He quickly nodded at Yun Yao. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing understood what he meant. Jiling's soul had been extracted. Hence, the 3 of them quickly walked out of the hall with the foul air and out of the dark brown stone door. Next, the 3 of them searched the 2nd stone door. Just like before, Bai Wuchen was responsible for breaking the formation on the stone door. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing hid in a dark corner and secretly monitored their surroundings. Not long after, Bai Wuchen used the power of the mysterious pagoda to successfully break the formation on the 2nd stone door. He slowly pushed open the heavy stone door and went in to investigate for a while. Then, he returned to the door and waved at Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao. The 2 of them quickly followed Bai Wuchen through the stone door. Behind the stone door was a dark passage. The walls were carved with strange patterns. Most of them were ghosts and monsters. It was hair-raising. There was a secret chamber at the end of the passageway. Bai Wuchen easily broke the array on the stone door and pushed it open. As soon as the stone door opened a crack, a weak light leaked out, and there were some weak shouts. Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen's expressions changed. They subconsciously gripped their swords, and their true essence surged in their bodies. They were ready to launch a thunderous attack at any time. Obviously, when the 2 of them saw the light in the secret room and heard the faint sounds, they thought that there were demons in the secret room. However, when the stone door opened, the expected demons did not appear. The scene in the secret room was also clearly presented before the 3 of them. In this secret room with a radius of 10 meters, The surrounding walls were carved with green-faced and fanged ghost god statues. There was an ancient stone lamp in each of the four corners of the room, which emitted a weak light under the support of the array. Dozens of silver chains hung from the roof, and each chain was tied to a palm-sized crystal ball. Other than that, there was nothing else in the secret chamber. Yun Yao, Ji Tianqing, and Bai Wuchen entered the secret chamber and looked around curiously. The three of them were puzzled. There was no one in the secret chamber, so why did they hear the shouts just now? Ji Tianqing glanced at the surrounding walls, and his eyes fell on the dozens of crystal balls. He vaguely saw that there was a cloud of gray fog in each of the transparent crystal balls, which was constantly rolling. He subconsciously walked to the side of a crystal ball and observed it closely. Suddenly, the gray fog in the crystal ball condensed into a human figure, which turned into a black-robed old man half the size of a palm. He roared at him crazily, "Let me out! Let me out quickly!" Although the sudden shout was very weak, it was clearly reflected in the minds of Ji Tianqing and the other two. Ji Tianqing was immediately shocked. He could not help but take a step back, and his eyes were fixed on the black-robed old man in the crystal ball. Then, the gray fog in the nearby crystal balls condensed into all kinds of people, who were shouting angrily and excitedly. "Let me out! That's great! Someone is here! Save me quickly! This old man has been imprisoned for many years. Young hero, please save me and let this old man reincarnate." In the blink of an eye, at least 20 of the gray fog in the crystal balls had turned into human figures of men, women and children. Their voices were sorrowful and mournful as they begged. Ji Tianqing finally understood what was going on and vaguely guessed what was going on. He looked at Yun Yao beside him and asked seriously, "Senior sister, the gray fog in these crystal balls should be the souls extracted by the Devil Clan, right?" "Yes." Yun Yao nodded. Her face was indifferent, but there was a faint anger in her eyes. "I didn't expect the Devil Clan to be so cruel and vicious. They won't even let the dead go. Even if the people are dead, they still extract their souls and seal them in these magical artifacts. The screams we heard just now weren't real voices. They were the voices of these souls. We can only hear them when we are close to them." Bai Wuchen nodded and said indignantly, "It is said that after a person dies, his soul will stay in the corpse for 7 days. After 7 days, he will be reincarnated. The cruel and vicious Devil Clan. After killing someone, they extract their souls and seal them in evil magical artifacts within 7 days. In this way, their souls will never be able to be reincarnated. I've checked just now. The souls sealed in these evil artifacts are all experts of the human race. Many of them are even from the big sects in the ancient realm of the stars." Yun Yao frowned and said coldly, "No wonder I have heard of strange things happening in other sects in the past 100 years. Experts have mysteriously disappeared. No one knows if they are alive or dead. It turns out that those experts were killed by the Devil Clan and their souls were sealed in here." Ji Tianqing listened to the conversation between the two, and gained a deeper understanding of the Devil Clan's cruelty and viciousness. He frowned and looked at the more than 30 crystal balls in the secret room. His sharp eyes searched for Ji Ling's soul. He slowly walked to the center of the secret room and looked at each crystal ball one by one. Finally, he stopped when he saw the 28th crystal ball. A gray fog was rolling in this crystal ball. When it heard the movement in the secret room, it condensed into a human figure. It was a small person half the size of a palm. He looked gentle and thin and wore a green robe. It was Ji Ling's appearance. When Ji Tianqing found him, he also saw Ji Tianqing. Ji Ling's face twisted in anger and he let out a soul roar. "Ji Tianqing, why is it you, bastard? What are you doing here?" Ji Tianqing looked at Ji Ling's soul. Seeing that his face was still filled with killing intent and hatred, he couldn't help but smile. "I am here to find you and send you to reincarnate." Chapter 153. Under normal circumstances, the words "I'll send you to reincarnate" would be taken as an insult. However, given Ji Ling's current situation, Ji Tianqing's actions were undoubtedly helping and saving him. However, Ji Ling did not appreciate it. Instead, he became even more furious. He glared at Ji Tianqing and roared with a distorted face. "Ji Tianqing, you damned beast! Bastard! I clearly have the Shenzhen bloodline. Why can't I activate the array? If I could successfully activate the array, I would have become the sect master's personal disciple. How could I have fallen to such a state? Ji Tianqing looked at him calmly and his lips curled into a disdainful sneer. Hee, the Shenzhen bloodline was originally mine. You despicable and shameless bandit, even if you used crafty tricks to steal my Shenzhen bloodline, your bloodline is not pure and will definitely be very thin. Of course, it's useless. Ji Ling was not willing to listen to his explanation and roared again. It's all because of you, bastard, that I'm in such a miserable state. When I die, my soul will be extracted by the demons and sealed here. We both come from the Clear Sky Kingdom. You're just a small descendant of the Ji family and I'm a noble prince. Why did it become like this? I can't accept this. If you kill me, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Ji Tianqing's sneer deepened and he said indifferently, if we didn't come to save you, you wouldn't even have the chance to become a ghost. Originally, the souls in the crystal balls around Ji Ling were all in deep slumber. However, after hearing the conversation between him and Ji Tianqing, a ball of silent gray fog in the corner of an ancient crystal ball suddenly turned into the appearance of a blue-robed old man. The blue-robed old man did not make a sound but listened carefully to the conversation between Ji Tianqing and Ji Ling. When he heard the words Shenzhen bloodline, his expression changed. When he heard the words Qing Yun Kingdom and Ji clan, his expression changed drastically. His eyes shone brightly as if he was agitated. However, he didn't send out a soul message. He just stayed inside the crystal ball and observed Ji Tianqing silently. At the same time, Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen came to Ji Tianqing's side and stared at the crystal ball that Ji Ling was in. Ji Ling was still roaring and cursing in the crystal ball. Yun Yao and Bai Wuchen ignored him. They were discussing how to save him in a low voice. Eldest senior sister. These silver chains are made of magic silver. They are connected to the crystal ball and are artifacts with special magic power. It looks like I have to break the spell formation and magic on the chains before I can take the crystal ball away. Junior brother Bai. Can you break the magic silver chains array? There shouldn't be a problem. Let me try. After the discussion, Bai Wuchen took out the Xuanji pagoda and used his ultimate skill to break the magic silver chains array formation. About 100 breaths later, the magic silver chains array formation was broken. The special magic power dissipated and the chain became dim. Yun Yao took out her treasured sword and cut off the silver chains with a swish. Then, she held the crystal ball that contained Ji Ling's soul in her palm. Bai Wuchen was overjoyed. He quickly said, Eldest senior sister, we got it. Let's leave this place and report back to the sect. However, before Yun Yao could answer, the souls sealed in the crystal balls around them started to cry and beg. Young hero, please save us. Young hero, are you a disciple of the Sky Pillar sect? I'm an elder of the Six Harmony sect. I've been to your sect a few times. Young heroes, please do me a favor. I'm a deacon of the Thousand Autumns sect. I'm good friends with Deacon Li of your sect. Young hero, please help us. Please let us be reincarnated. If there's a next life, I'll repay you even if I have to be a cow or a horse. The pleading voices of men, women, old and young were imprinted in the minds of Yun Yao, Bai Wuchen, and Bai Wuchen, making them feel sad and unbearable. Bai Wuchen didn't want to complicate matters. He just wanted to escape from the Devil Clan's stronghold as soon as possible and report back to the sect leader of the Sky Pillar sect. However, Yun Yao couldn't bear it. After hesitating for a while, she said in a deep voice, Junior brother Bai, the souls imprisoned here are all from my clan. They're innocent people. Judging from the appearance of those crystal balls, many of their souls have been sealed for at least hundreds of years. Let's just let them go and do good deeds. Bai Wuchen didn't want Yun Yao to look down on him. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, All right. Since eldest senior sister is so kind, I'll do as you say. Therefore, he used the power of the Xianji Pagoda to perform his Array Dao secret art to break the array on the crystal balls. Every time the array on a crystal ball was broken, Yun Yao would slash the crystal ball with her sword and release the imprisoned souls. Those souls were so excited that they thanked the three of them with tears of gratitude. Then, they dissipated between heaven and earth and went to be reincarnated. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. 38 of the 39 crystal balls had already been shattered by Yun Yao. There was still the last crystal ball in the corner of the secret room. Bai Wuchen was controlling the Xianji Pagoda to break the array on the crystal ball. As long as the soul in the crystal ball was saved, the mission would be completed and the merit would be complete. However, no one expected that at this moment, a series of hurried footsteps could be heard from outside the secret room. Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing were shocked and turned to look at the door of the secret room. The next moment, a 2-meter-tall devil clan man with a sturdy body and dark purple skin appeared at the door. This man only wore an apron made of animal skin and a waistcoat made of animal skin. His whole body was covered with thick hair, and his neck and arms were covered with tattoos. He looked extremely ferocious. When he saw Ji Tianqing and the other two in the secret room, he let out a furious roar and charged toward them with his heavy sword. The black heavy sword in his hand was as wide as a bench. It was shining with a 2-meter-long purple sword radiance. With the power to destroy everything, it swept toward Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing could instantly tell that this devil clan man's strength had reached the mystic enlightening realm. At this moment, Yun Yao's pretty face turned cold. A murderous look flashed in her eyes as she slashed out 3 sword radiances with her sword. Bam, bam, bam. In the muffled sound, the sword radiance pierced through the devil clan man's chest. Immediately, purple blood spurted out and he was sent flying out of the secret room. However, as soon as the male demon fell, 2 equally burly and valiant demons rushed into the secret room with black sabers in their hands. We've been discovered. Let's go. Yun Yao's expression changed immediately. She took the initiative to attack the 2 devils and shouted at Bai Wuchen. Bai Wuchen was only halfway through breaking the array on the last crystal ball. Seeing this, he could only stop. He put away the Xianji pagoda and rushed to the secret room's door with his sword. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.